If you could hide a color in the twinkling of an eye, and then continue onward with that same speed to fly, do you think that you could ever, through all eternity, find out the generation where gods began to be? Or see the grand beginning, where space did not extend? Or view the lost creation, where gods and matter end? Methinks the spirit whispers, no man has found pure space, nor seen the outside curtains, where nothing has a place. The works of God continue, and worlds and lives abound. Improvement and progression have one eternal round. There is no end to matter, there is no end to space, there is no end to spirit, there is no end to race, there is no end to virtue, there is no end to light, there is no end to wisdom, there is no end to light. It's monthly Mormon Mondays. It's time for the secret handshake. Tune in and race through the... It's monthly Mormon Mondays. It's time for...
Well, usually it's monthly Mormon Monday, but I don't know what's going on with the video. But we are here. We are live.
We're live.
I'm Paranoid American. This is Heidi Love, the Exmo, and the... I forgot what I am. The Maymo?
You're the Maymo. Macemo.
Okay. The
Yes.
Maymo and the Exmo. I feel like
having
Maymo
my
doesn't
coffee
describe me
now.
well enough.
Mason Mo.
And we have an open invite to Andreas, but unfortunately he's in Dresden like this entire month, I guess, because what else does a CIA agent do but fly around the world constantly and analyze artifacts? He was in like a museum posting some crazy like Mayan calendar thing. But
I saw that.
He's gonna be bummed. He's gonna be bummed because today we're gonna talk about Mormonism and transhumanism, which I think that he's a fan of both of those things. I'm more skeptical of the two, and I don't know your stance on transhumanism. So what is it? What's your stance on transhumanism?
So no, I'm not down. And I definitely don't want to live forever and not be able to die like the Bible says. I'm good to go. Not right away.
I feel like that's almost skipping ahead to the last chapter though, of like the live forever, because that's, I guess, the ultimate goal of transhumanism, and that one is the most like biblical, right? That's where you start getting into Antichrist and promising everlasting. But let's like not jump right into the deep end, because like wouldn't transhumanism be you lose a leg and you get a peg leg, or you get a bionic leg? Like what would, in your opinion, what would be the difference between a peg leg and a bionic leg?
I think that's okay. I just am talking about, I probably wouldn't have anything that was lab created that was out of tissue. Any tissues,
but
metal.
How far does this go? What if it's what if they just can put your brain in a vat connected to a mech body?
No.
Okay, so
definitely not. No, definitely. No, nothing that's not within our scope of reason right now, like a heart transplant. Stuff like that, okay. But like if they grew it in a lab, like in a petri dish heart, count me out on that one.
Okay, but what about mechanic? Because I mean, like my grandpa had
mechanical leg.
a mechanical, not like a mechanical heart. Although technically, I think that those might be on the cusp of reason. Like that could be a reasonable antidote for some people with chronic heart problems. They'll just be like, here's a computerized heart. You don't even need to worry about it going bad anymore. Like, does that mean you don't have a soul if your heart is no organic material at all?
I mean, it's all a fine line, isn't it? I'd have to really pray about it. I don't think that that's necessarily bad. I just am talking more about human grown things from like fetal cells and weird stuff. Like that's not for me. But I actually wouldn't like say anybody else has to do what I do because I'm not that person. So
What about Neuralink?
no way. No effing
Okay,
way. I don't
so
trust that man. No way.
I want to figure out where the line is because I'm gonna assume that if something happened and you lost all 4 limbs, right? Both arms, both legs, but they were like, hey, it's already covered. Here's these, it's not lab grown tissue, it's just mechanical arms and legs, and you'll be good as new. You'd be open to
Yeah.
that, right?
I'd probably be open to that. I mean, but I would just hope they'd let me die at that point. Like
Well, you don't know that. You don't know that.
I'm just saying. My dad, my dad got very serious about this. He was a type 1 diabetic all his life, and he was really scared of having amputations and different things and early. And he always told me like, I'm DNR, I'm DNR. I'm like, yeah, but what if somebody just comes up on you and you're just at the supermarket and and so he had it tattooed on him. Like DNR right there.
Oh, okay. That means it's pretty hardcore.
I mean, he's not here anymore. He was like, I'm not doing this. I was like, Dad, you need another bypass. And he was like, I know. And I'm like, he would call me every day, tell me all about it. And I'm like, your cardiac surgeon called me today and he wants me to talk to you. And I remember telling the cardiac surgeon, have you talked to him? Because like he's definitely not going to listen to me.
It's literally your job and you get paid handsomely for it.
Well, he knew me was the problem. And he's like, you're dad. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I told him and he's like, and I was saving up all my pain pills to go get a hooker and live out my life on a beach. And now my plan is ruined. And I'm like, okay.
Classic Jack Mormon.
Yeah, he never was he was a never mo. Yeah. My dad was the one that went to prison and was the never mo.
Doesn't that cancel out half of your mo or no?
I mean, their family's still got tons of Mormons in it, so yeah. They did all the things.
So no Neuralink, which I means like no invasive surgery that connects your brain or anything to technology. But okay to limbs, I'll assume okay to exoskeleton stuff, right? You go in the military and they strap a little thing on you that makes you run fast and punch hard. That's all good too because it's not directly connected to you.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do anything to make me like a super soldiery type person either.
Well, you wouldn't, but the military would, and you wouldn't have a say into that at the point.
Yeah, that's true. Who knows?
Is that incompatible with the Mormons and military service?
Oh, no.
No?
Oh, no. They're all about the military. They're all about living forever. They're all about all those things. No. They're very patriotic, actually.
Well, that was my introduction. I mentioned this before. My introduction to Mormonism was all through my military command. And they made a huge impact. That they didn't convert me or anything, but made a huge impact where I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I was like, damn, there's like certain people on this base and in my chain of command that are like reliable. They're super early. Like they'll stay late. They're like, if your car breaks, like all the things that you would just like see on the commercials where they give the girl all the apples or whatever. I can't remember one of those spiritual
apples.
Yes. Right, the apples commercial. Like, but those guys were in my unit, and only after a long time, longer than it should have taken me, I was like, oh, they're all Mormons. I get it now. There's like this connection to it. So
Mormons are really we are trained from birth that we are not saved by grace, so we are usually overachievers. So there's that.
Okay, so we've got an Exmo's opinion. I guess I'm skeptic of transhumanism, but I wouldn't say that I'm like staunch out protesting. No. I actually think that at a certain point, transhumanism is going to be almost non-invasive. You won't even have to get something that like surgically attaches to your brain. It'll just be like, hey, inhale this little cloud of dust. It'll come in like
Operation Sea Spray. Operation Sea Spray.
I mean, well, that's if it's not even voluntary, which then everyone's screwed, right? It doesn't even matter what your opinion is. You'll already be transhumanist. But I'm almost like a Banaka spray or something, like maybe temporary. Like they could introduce temporary nanobots that serve their purpose, and then just
they probably already have. You do know that Microsoft just made a deal with Coca-Cola. Do you know this?
To put nanobots in the soda, I assume.
I mean, they didn't say that, but Bill Gates and IBM. So I don't know. His mom worked for IBM. Everybody goes hard on his dad and the eugenics. I'm like, check out his mom, y'all. It's
Check out
great.
literally the origin of nearly every American institution that was around in the 1900s or earlier. Like they all
Especially in
played
the World
a
War.
part.
Yeah. Yeah. World Wars. Once it gets to the World Wars, you know what's up. Like, especially World War II.
So okay, so I'm a little bit ambivalent on it. Either way, I could be sold one way or the other. I wouldn't sign up to be a beta tester for a Neuralink or anything, unless you're like the dude that can't walk anyways, and now he can play video games like super well. But it does seem that Mormons in general are pretty compatible with transhumanism, which does seem a little bit odd to me because I would assume that some of the same reservations that Christians might have to transhumanism might apply to Mormons, but Mormons also
Well,
believe in the potential of everlasting life, and like this
eternal life. Yep.
perfection of the world and perfection of the human body, which does it. Like, do Mormons believe that God didn't get the body right in the first place, and it's up to us to fix it, or are we waiting for
No.
upgrades, or what?
No, I don't think they necessarily think that, but they are really on the cusp of technology. And I will tell you that the number one shareholder of the Mormons, and has been for a while, but especially as of 2024, is Microsoft. And Bill Gates is now the number one. And this, I'm going to go into this when we do Mormon magic money someday, but um, also Bill Gates is the number one farm owner of land now in America, but number two is the LDS Church. And then that is their number one stock holding position is Microsoft. So it gets a little interesting. They're very on the cusp of anything up and coming. They're not afraid of any of the, experimental type things to go forward in the future. They're very like hop on technology. They were one of the first people with like, do computers. And they had like computer missions. And my grandma had a computer mission where she just all day long with genetic stuff. And then that's kind of interesting because they are super interested in genealogy. So they got the Batcave, don't forget, you know.
Well,
Hi,
one of
honey.
the whole idea of theosis, and you can correct me because I'm still learning about this, and to you, it's like stuff that you probably had drilled in and out of your head a few times by now. But theosis is the idea that humans over time can progressively improve and improve and improve until they literally become gods, right? Not just godlike,
Wow.
but they will become gods.
So, yes, there is a quote from Joseph Smith that says, God was once a man. This is called the Adam God theory. And I hate to get it wrong. I have it right in my notes, but they're in the file and I don't want to mess up our stream. But he says, God was once a man and man can become as God through progression. Basically, they do believe they will become gods and they lie about this now. It's not just Joseph Smith. That was Joseph first. If you put in Adam God theory, Joseph Smith, it will come right up. And then there's multiple other prophets that have been toted saying this, but then all of a sudden it became wildly like, oh shit, we're saying crazy stuff. And then the church was like, JK, no collab. And they do that a lot.
I still think they're going to give it back. It's going to take another generation that was sold on it, right? Because when was the last time they really pushed that? Was in the 70s or so, right?
Oh, yeah. And now they're just like, that's all nonsense. Like in the 90s, I would say the church became very Alex P. Keaton-esque. For those of you that watch Family Ties, they became like corporate Mitt Romney type people. They got very, let's get our shit together and not look like crazy space nerds or whatever they were doing before that.
And what do you call the Grand Emperor Space Nerd of Mormonism again?
The prophet,
Master
seer, and
Elder.
revelator. The
Okay,
prophet, seer, and revelator. Yes,
so
president.
whoever the next prophet, seer, and revelator
It
is,
will
they're
be
probably going
Dallin
to be
Oaks. Yeah,
well, they're going to usually be like 70 years old or something, right?
He is. He's old. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that means that the people that were sold on Mormonism by the 70s, let's say, that we're still getting little like hits of Kolob, they probably have a soft spot for Kolob. So then when the 70-year-olds that grew up with that in the 1970s, that'll probably be in the next 10 years, 10 to 20 years. So if there's any chance of getting Kolob back, it would probably be through that generation that was raised on Star Trek. Because right now we still have people that maybe were introduced to all the Star Trek pop culture references a little bit too late, and they were maybe
Right.
turned off by how progressive Kolob was.
Well, I think it just sounded weird, and at the time, they were being super exposed with, like, the salamander story and all these things, and I think they were just trying to quell things a little bit, like, "We'll bring this back a little at a time, but, like, let's not have everybody choke on magical shit," like, "Let's fix this," and so, they are very rich and they are very, well connected. Their top 10 shareholdings are all very interesting, like Amazon and Nvidia and Alphabet and all the things that would Tesla. Jared Birchall runs Elon Musk's company. He's also a Mormon. Like the Mormons are everywhere. The thing about the Mormons is they will be the guy that does, and I dare say this already happened. I said this about Rome. I mean, they snuck in there so quietly, built that temple, had it all the way done, did their little stunt, pictures, whatever, and nobody knew about it. And it's still, I'm telling people, and this happened years ago. So they're always the underdog, but they're sliding in there. And I do think they're going to be very powerful in the end. They're very with the times, and they're working with all the people that are with the times. So
Well, and
who
again,
knows?
that's probably one of my fascinations with Mormonism is it's the only religion that I'm even aware outside of realism and a few of the other
Right.
kind of fringe ones, but it is a major religion that stays up to date with the times because it's only 2 centuries old. So it kind of
Mhm.
has no other choice, but it also has that benefit, which again, I guess, lends very well to the fact that they would be more compatible with transhumanism than a lot of other religions.
Yeah.
And there's
Well,
another
I think
part of
they're a
that.
part of it. Yeah, I think they're a big part of it when you know that they are the full company that feeds all the genealogical information into ancestry.com and 23andMe from their Batcave with over 3 billion genealogical thing records in there. It's crazy. That's crazy. Like
Well, and
it's
even if
got
you don't
razor
believe
wire.
even
Yeah.
if you don't believe in, like, the religious use of that, like, if you don't even think that they can let's say that you're an atheist, you're agnostic, or you're any other religion, you're like, "Who cares if they're just baptizing people after they're dead? What does it even matter? It doesn't work." But there's still a lot of practical applications to having access to all of this while we're here now. So even if you don't believe in the woo-woo part, you still have to at least acknowledge that they have this weird superpower of like being able to trace your gene. And
It's
one
scary,
last
and by the way, that's not just Mormons, these records go into everyone. They don't have to get permission. They've done all the superstars. They've done Elvis, they've done Marilyn, they've done Obama's mom, they've done Adolf Hitler, they've done the Jews, then they got told to knock it off, and then they said, "We will knock it off," and then they didn't knock it off, and then they did Anne Frank. So they just keep doing what they wanna do, so
I mean,
don't
they're
think you're
doing
safe
it in
out there, people.
underground chambers, right? They literally do
Yeah.
it in like or like at least
In a
in
mountain. Here,
interior
I'll
chambers.
show it. Yeah, I'll go ahead with the Batman cave because it's kinda fun. I mean, we
So I mean,
can't.
even if they said they wouldn't, I mean, who's gonna stop you? Especially if it doesn't really like you wouldn't even be able to know that they were doing this, and you would find out years later, oh, they've already baptized millions of people. So it's
Yeah,
almost a moot point. Like you can't prevent them from doing this. But
no.
when you said the magic and also the planet and taking it away, I do have one other alternate theory, and that's
What is
that
it?
what if they they figured
Can
out
you
that there's a finite number of planets, like there's a finite amount of real estate that they can give out, and by just
Oh,
promising a planet to everyone, it won't scale. It would almost be a run on the bank. Either that, or maybe they took some cues from I'm speculating now, but they could have taken cues from Scientology where you have to make it to it. Maybe you have to get to like the second anointing, and after you get to the second
right.
anointing, they say, "Hey, psst, over here, now that you're in the platinum club, here's this new catalog. Oh, and look at that. What's on page one? It's a planet. And you can get a planet for 80% off
Planet.
today
Yeah.
only." Right. But
Oh
they
my
could have
gosh.
ended up using all of the things that they've taken away from the masses, all the exoteric stuff, and they make it esoteric so that they're
Yeah.
upsells once you get to those higher levels. Now they can
Oh,
sell you on the magic
I'm
and the
actually
amulet
certain
and
that's true. Yeah, I'm probably certain that's true because I don't think their theology can actually change because it's revealed by God, right? So, I mean, can you see the Bat Cave? This is the Batman cave.
So how is this any different than the regular pool with the golden calves supporting
No,
it, where you do the
this is military guarded almost. You cannot get to this. This is blown out of the side of the mountain.
Well, that sounds like a
And this,
challenge.
yep, razor wire, can't get in. Nobody's been in. See it? Very narrow way in and out. You can't get through. Over 3 billion genealogy records are in here, and all of their stuff is uploaded to familysearch.org, which then is included into all the other sites, including 23andMe, which is sketchy right now. Sketchy. So because their board resigned on the same day that Diddy got arrested. So
Totally
and
unrelated, I'm sure.
unrelated, I'm sure. And also her sister just died, right before that, the month
Whose
before
sister?
that. Ann Warchicki, her sister ran YouTube. She was the CEO for
Oh,
YouTube, and
right.
she just up and died. And then her son up and died of a overdose right before that. So we got a little Clinton fun right there. I don't know what's going on, but this is also, I have a little sample of this is their genealogical records and what they look like. And this one is Adolf Hitler's. Just for fun. They made sure he got
Okay,
done.
well, I want to see what this is. So they did this on March 6th of 1996. They've got his sex male, questionable, event birth, April 20th, 1889, father Alois,
Yeah,
and
I think
mother
maybe.
Clara.
Yeah.
It's got it. Oh wow, it's got when he was baptized, when he was in
Well, that's when they did it for him. That's his date.
this is his Mormon baptism. Okay, so
Yes.
what did they do? What did they do on Hitler's baptism in 1993?
I don't want to know, but they got in the golden calf pond, the golden calf pond. Here, I'll show it for everybody.
And it says Londo, so I assume that means London. They baptized them in London.
Yes.
Do you
in
have to be
London.
closer to where the person died for it to
No.
work better?
Mm-mm.
It doesn't matter.
Nope. Not even nothing. You don't have to do any of that. I'm trying to look for the golden calf pond. I know.
Is
I
more
have it
why would anyone care about what a Mormon church in London does versus one in the States?
I mean, it just means whoever got the wisecrack idea to do it, they went ahead. So they just don't have to have any permissions of any sort, and they don't
Even
have
from the Mormon
to.
church itself?
No, nope. You just take
Could
Here we
you?
go.
So
There we go.
Could we?
There's the
could we
golden
just-
calf. Some little kid went in and baptized Hitler.
So what do you need
the
to
kids
do?
it.
Like how do you be qualified to do this baptism
So
thing? Could
I've
you
done
do it?
these. Oh, well, yeah, but the kids usually do it because we're busy doing the endowment part and they can't do that. So, but yeah, I did these. You can do up to 8 to 10 names per person. So you get in your baptism suit and you go in there and they actually say you are the name. You're a proxy for them, literally.
Right.
And so you go in and they do the same baptism as everybody gets and dunk you, and then you do it again. Then you're another name, and they do it again, and then they dunk you again. And this keeps going on for 8 to 10 people. So, yeah.
Let's say that we did that same thing, but in reverse. Do you think it's even possible you could unbaptize somebody?
They say they can accept the baptism or not. They say they have choices to not have this or whatever. And so they just can choose. They're like basically up there in some kind of waiting room and they're just like, hey, we're waiting for our baptism, get it done. And then you're doing it. So that's the rush on it, right? They're like, hurry up, we're waiting for you, get it together, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, so.
What if you only baptized Hitler, but you didn't go through the endowment? He's like left in limbo?
Yeah, he has to wait in the waiting room. Yeah, he
So
needs
could
all
you
his
do that
work
to
done.
like punish people? You could just go around baptizing but not endowing?
I mean, I don't think they would. They usually do it all on the same day. You noticed his was all done on the same day. Whoever does the names, they usually get them done in the same day. So
Right, but I'm just like in medieval
right.
times in Medici, they would have like a black mass where they would invert a Catholic mass and undo all the good
Oh
that the
boy.
Catholic mass was doing. But could you do an inversion of a Mormon baptism, or if you can't invert it and undo it, I wonder if we could like restart it. So, for example, we could wait for one of the prophet seers and revelators to die, and then just me and you could rebaptize them, but like screw it up halfway in and not finish it. And if
Oh
that's known,
man.
doesn't that mean that another Mormon somewhere else would be like, oh my God, I have to fix that? We can't
Uh,
let his last baptism have been this travesty of like this mockery. So they
well,
would have
they
to
don't.
rebaptize him. And you could constantly be like fighting, like, nope, I
They
got him.
got
And then
they got guys that are there watching the whole thing. Like if you accidentally didn't get your arm in, you get to get baptized again, like or whatever. They watch all this.
I imagine they have like little referee outfits. They blow a
Yeah.
whistle and they
Or
throw a
nope.
flag.
The
No,
white suit. Yeah. The white suit. They got the white suit.
they clutch their pearls.
Yes, and the white dresses. Yeah, they got their fancy temple outfits. We only get to wear that in a temple. No colors, all white, except the
Okay.
green aprons, of course.
So another item on my list of how Mormonism and transhumanism seems uniquely compatible is that Mormons also believe, I think, in like this millennial Christ, in that as soon as the 1800s came around and Mormonism invented, every 5 years they were like, Christ is coming back in 5 years. Everyone get ready. Oh, and then 5 years passes. They're like, no, I meant 5 years from now. And that's kind of been happening, but it seems like they are less vague now. You don't hear the prophet seers coming out and saying, we've got 20 years left, but
No,
that's the
no, they just
DNA of
say,
Mormonism.
yeah,
Like that was
yes.
always in the DNA, right?
There's end of the world is constantly coming, and that now they don't put time frames on it. They just always say like, you got to be ready. You know, Mormons are huge preppers. They are prepping for the end of the world all the time. They are encouraged every single person to have over 2 years of food
You're
and food
selling me right
storage.
now. Just you're at
Yeah.
risk of really selling me on this again.
They're preppers. Yeah, they want you to have 2 years of food storage for every
I love
person in
that.
your family.
Imagine if any other community in the entire world was actively telling all of its parishioners, and I guess I'm using that word wrong, but I was Catholic. But if they were telling all parishioners, like, hey, stock up, don't trust your government, that's
They
kind
don't
of
trust, yeah. Well, here's the funny thing about Mormons. They say they don't trust their government, and they're running away. They're running away from, the government. They wanna go do polygamy, and they're this obscure group out in Mexico, right, where they run to is Utah,
the,
but or
where
Mexico
the
at the
Romneys
time.
are at, I
Right,
believe.
right, right. And so they ran their life there, and then they get there, and then Brigham Young's like, "Hey, president, do you want us to help build the railroad?" It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense because then they're constantly working for the government, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I
Well, I
don't
guess
think that
if you
yeah,
want to make sure that either you can take the government down or so that they can't take you down, is to infiltrate, infiltrate, infiltrate.
they
And
have done that because they are part of all the 3-letter agencies, 100%.
I feel like they killed them, like they killed everyone with kindness on the way there. Like a Mormon
Absolutely.
assassin might be one of the better assassins to be assigned to your case.
Absolutely. They are the nicest, most you would never know if you were gonna be killed by a Mormon,
I love
ever.
that.
Yeah. It would be out of nowhere. You would be with the nicest person, like doctor, lawyer, upstanding,
They've got
rich,
like a
nice
kill count
car.
in in Iraq or something. They've
Yep.
taken out like 800 people.
Somebody just said Romney. She's not wrong. He worked for Bain and Company. I do a whole episode on that. Check out the Mormon Mafia. She's not wrong. She's not wrong.
The 12er
Oh.
Shia Muslims, I'll have to look into that. I guess I'm
All
open.
right.
Any good prepper anti-government religions, my ears are open.
But they're kind of not anti-government. They're kind of they are the government, kind of. And then, I don't know. I don't know. If you look into the Mormon Mafia, even since I've talked to you last, I looked more into the Mormon Mafia, and Bennett, who they placed there on purpose and ended up being in the Senate, he was there for years and years and years. He's the senator from Nevada, but yet he was in the CIA the whole time. And he was like a huge part of Watergate. Like it gets into the JFK like assassination. Like it's crazy. And I'm telling you guys, like, I don't trust it. I think that it's 100% they're all working together. So yep, it's one of those things, but they do like the preparedness. I mean, they do say this, Also, you don't get to keep your food. Let me explain something. If the end of the world were to happen and we had a war and they thought it was the end of the world, they would call all of your food storage to one particular area and then it becomes communism. So at that point, they will take whatever they need and put it all in one big area, and then everybody has to come and get their portion of bread for the day. So
I can't see any way that could go wrong.
right. Yeah. Unless you have too many people, and then maybe then you don't.
So this might sound like a loaded question, so you can go ahead and get your laughs out on everything. But when you're done laughing and mocking and snickering, there's still a question behind it. So, do Mormons have respect for knowledge and science more so than other religions?
Absolutely. I say our still because ex-Mormon, but was Mormon forever. The current prophet, seer, and revelator of the church is a heart surgeon. Don't forget that. So he was part of like a lot of medical like things. I think he was one of the first ones to do heart surgery on a child. I can't remember specifically, but I read his biography and there was some stuff about that in there. So
Did this
yeah.
also happen inside of a mountain?
No, it's boring. He wasn't the prophet
That would
yet.
have been more interesting.
He probably practiced in there, right? But
What about, do Mormons believe in dinosaurs in general?
I don't know if I don't think they say anything about that. They just kind
Really?
of go with like, whatever it was, it was. Like they're more interested in the future.
Because that's definitely a point of contention in Christianity.
Yeah. They don't get into like were there dinosaurs versus dragons or like crazy stories like that. They're very serious now. Like I think at one point they were pretty cool and had magical practices and all these weird things, probably Martinist, who knows, but they just lost all that when they became the Alex P. Keatons of the world. But I do think that you're right. Once they get to the second anointing, there's a lot of stuff that gets busted open because we see these people that seemingly appear very normal, like Lori Vallow, and she's this normal lady. And then all of a sudden one day she isn't normal after she gets hooked up, with other people in the community. And I'm assuming she probably had the second anointing. And then, we get into Chad Daybell and his weird books and all this, about speaking of living forever and predestinies and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, whatever the case there, next thing you know, her kids are dead. So, and then there's magic circles drawn around their graves and weird stuff. So yeah, I think some people that get that second anointing are not as mentally sound like baseline, and then they hear some crazy thing and they just go wild off with it. So can be a little scary.
Well, hear me out too, because Mormonism, we've already gone at length on almost every single show, so I guess this one won't be different. But that how compatible Mormonism is with occultism, even if they don't profess it as much right now, modern day, but like the very beginnings of that, and part of that too is because occultism, vampirism, like magical talismans, all of these things, even if you don't really believe it, the Mormonism, like when it was founded, was closer to all that,
yes,
compared to when the church was founded. When like the other modern, I guess it would be Islam and Christianity would be the other two like major world religions that are fairly new compared to the alternatives. And even that,
you're sure they were
like,
occult based.
Yeah. Well, because Mormonism is maybe 300, 400 years removed from the height of, like medieval sort of archaic magic and like all of the John Dee books and all of the homunculi, like all of that real good right in the middle of like the occult sort of golden age. Mormonism was kind of sprung from that because they were so close to it. There's no other religion that is really that close to the height of all of that.
I mean, that's why I bring up Martinism, because I just feel like enough people don't even know about his mentor, who was Lumen Walters. Lumen Walters was a mentor to Joseph Smith, and Joseph, really looked up to him. But that man was actually chased out of town for being an occultist. And he was a doctor that just came back from where? France. That's why I conjecture that possibly he was the one that introduced Martinism to Joseph instead of just regular Masonry, which he was already affiliated with and came from a family of this. So for him, it wouldn't be a stretch, I mean, his brother's name was Hiram. I mean, like, okay, but like you said, and we've talked, like there's no way that the Scottish Rite was together long enough for it to reach and have such a powerful hold over, Joseph and his family in obscurity here in America. I just don't buy that. Also, he was in a lodge from Canada, and where Canadians are very French associated. Like, I think it adds up better, but
Yeah, I mean, I've got maybe a boring view on the whole Masonic tie, especially when it comes into Mormonism, but it just makes so much more sense. It's more rational to me, and that's that Freemasonry, since forever, has more about been like a template. It was more about here's how you conduct yourself. You have secret names. You've got secret nonverbal cues that you can pass to someone in a crowded room, so that only those with eyes to see it will be able to see it. Like all of those things, along with the discipline, showing up, having people do background checks on you, all of this stuff sounds routine now, because anyone that's gotten a job in the last 30
yeah,
years, they've had to have a resume where you're like, okay, here's my references, right? You've a lot of jobs will do a background check on you. All of these are inventions of modern society and technology. Like no one was doing
yeah,
this 100 years ago. They weren't hiring firms to do background checks. And I mean, you could ask for references, but unless you were from that town and you grew up in that town and you're like, ask old Sally Mae that lives by the
right,
lake or
right.
whatever, then it didn't really matter. And
Uh,
Masonry was one
And
of the few
yeah,
things that provided that structure where you could say, oh, you're a Mason. What lodge? Oh, Indiana. What lodge number? And you could actually do a background
check
check
on
and
them.
find out if they were lying or if they were upstanding. So, but that
Well,
it
and
loses
Scottish
its
Rite, yeah,
use after a while.
Scottish Rite isn't practicing. They're not practitioners, where Martinists are practitioners to this day and still exist of Solomonic magic. They say this outright. Like Ike Baker was just on Tinfoil Hat and talked about this. He says he is a Martinist.
Well,
So,
that's debatable, because I've definitely talked to lodge members that 100% with their heart believe that every single lodge meeting is a magic ritual, and that they're tracing sigils with their footsteps and all of that.
but not
And
like, have you seen the Martinist gear? What they wear? Because I have a photo. It looks like
it's not as
the Black
serious
Sabbath.
as Martinists.
Yeah.
Martinists are almost like OTO or Golden Dawn, like
Yes.
where they are overtly doing magic and claiming
Yes.
so.
Yes. It's not like a like you said, like, is this a sigil? We're just here. You know what I mean? Like, they're not just having dinner. They're doing things that are specific. And, I think it's interesting when we talk about Solomonic or Enochian magic. Those are the two magics that people actually say that are actually practitioners. Like, don't do this unless you know what you're doing. It can go real bad. And for me to read that and like tons of Reddits, I've read so much information now. And I'm like reading this going, okay, this scared some people, including Saint Martin. Saint Martin was in part of developing Martinism. And what happens to him in the middle? He's like, don't trust the angels. The angels lie. Never talk to them again. Go away, Seraphim. Do not talk to me. Like, he got scared. I don't know what he saw, but he got scared. So the other two were fine. The other two were like, nah, bro, talk to the angels. But
All right, I've got one other, I think, strong case for transhumanism and Mormonism. Although we're kind of preaching to the choir here, because you're already like, yeah, of course they're on board. But I guess to further proves this a little bit is that what is most of our technology today based on? It's essentially based on gold and gold-plated minerals inside of the circuit boards and the chips and everything, right? But we're still kind of using these gold seer stones, and Joseph Smith was using these seer stones and this literal technology. Like what,
yes,
like polished stones to humans are technology, even if it's rudimentary. So this whole concept of that technology can get us closer and closer to God is also baked into the very foundation of Mormonism, right? So it
for
just seems
sure.
that it would make perfect sense that somebody like, oh yeah, of course you need a computer in order to turn into a god.
Right. I mean, I think it's interesting that when we look at like the supercomputer and how that was developed, or even the PCR test and how that was developed, or even, there's a great little short going around of Elon Musk talking about Memphis, and that is really interesting. But like they are obviously still using the technology of the earth. And I think this goes literally back to the first murder, because what happens in the Bible when Abel falls down and is slain is his blood spoke to God when it hit the dirt. So, I mean, we're talking about things that are magical in the earth and digging. And if you guys look up anything that has to do with magic and digging, it gets deep. And I'm not just talking about our brother Smith here.
Was that
I'm
pun
talking
intended?
about other things. Yes, I'm talking about, the things that I find interesting every time I'm reading about, if a toad shows up and talks to a guy, it tells them to dig. And that was in one of like Blurry Creatures more recent, I think it was, episodes. And I'm like, this guy made a deal with the devil and basically got the sigil of, I can't remember who he, Baal on him, and it wanted him to dig. And I found that fascinating, knowing what I know about Mormonism. I was like, what's he digging for? Did he tell him about some plates? I want
I
to
mean, it could be
know.
or cobalt mines, or maybe they're just digging up more supplies for the next generation
Right?
of microchips. All this seems
I
like
don't
it would
even
be.
know. I don't know, but the
And
supercomputer guy, he was digging under his house, and the gnomes told him where to find that information. So
well, also we know how hard in the paint the Mormons go when it comes to genealogy, and that's the one thing that they've kind of been on the cuff about. Like, they've let the world know that they're doing all of this, but it wouldn't surprise me that they've got other special projects that they're not so overt about, that are like a little bit more
right.
secret. And some of those could be,
Well,
maybe
they've
they're
learned.
acquiring mines, and maybe they're
As
acquiring
as
technology
for
companies.
sure. For sure. As they've gotten into, like, Microsoft is their number one holding, and on top of it, they're like part of every 3-letter agency ever. They've obviously learned, like, yo, we gotta shut up some people because this is looking real crazy. Like, we can't have everybody talking about what we're doing in there at the high level. And so, of course, they're gonna, make it muted and wait until you get to like the certain level. We don't give it to the adept. Let's get real. Like, we got to get clear up top, and then we're going to tell them the secrets, right? Like you said, then they'll give you the book about like Scientology. What's the friggin' alien's name at the top? You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be for everybody. And so I can't remember the name of that alien. Xenu.
The Scientology alien. Yeah.
Yeah, Xenu is the top. You can't just come out with that in level 5. Let's get real. Like, that's why we say this is 1% of Mormons, not your grandma down the street, not and look, every time there Joseph was well aware of this. I want to bring this up, and I don't remember if I brought it up in the Harry Potter episode, but he went to Salem, but also when they were at Salem, he already knew some things because his grandfather was involved. His grandfather Azael, by the way, who died on Halloween. Let's not get weird at all. Okay, so he was a part of the Inquisition in Salem for some of these witches. So they knew exactly what not to say. He was on the prosecution side for things. So doesn't that make so much sense if you're actually the one doing it to turn around and blame other people, like every other person that's ever, done this as a narcissist to someone else and gaslight them? Like, he knew exactly what not to say. He knew exactly what Joseph shouldn't say. I think Joseph got a little loosey-goosey with his mouth, and it got him killed, to be quite frank. So
That was kind of in vogue at that time. And in fact, being loosey-goosey was probably how Joseph Smith even heard about half of these things to begin with. So it was sort of the heyday of everyone, just revealing secrets nonstop.
Yep. And it's funny to me that they want to continue with he couldn't read or write English, yet he's studying Hebrew with a Jewish guy. Righto. Because you want to study Hebrew if you don't know how to read English, because that's not hard at all. It doesn't even, their narrative is crazy, but you can't bring this up to people because they don't know about it. Their history is hidden. And when you have a hidden history, it's easy to make up along the way. So
One of the comments, what's the deal with astronauts being
they
Masons
are.
or
That's
Mormons?
true. That's
So
true.
there's way more Masonic astronauts than there are Mormons. I think there was only like 2 major names when it comes to Mormonism. It was like Don Lind, I think, is one of the most famous ones, and he was involved in the Challenger crew. And then there was
Mhm.
another dude that didn't actually get to walk on the moon or do anything too cool. Richard Searfoss, I think, but he was in space for like a month or so. I mean, it counts, but those are like the biggest Mormon ones. But everyone always talks about the Masons on the moon because it was what Buzz Aldrin and Gordon Cooper and John Glenn and a whole bunch of Don Easel. There was like a list of them, and I think that, like, I guess at least to answer the Mason part, why so many Masons on the moon, a lot of that was early on. A lot of those were in the Apollo missions or in the Mercury missions. So these were dudes that grew up, they were going to the moon in like the 50s, 60s time period. So they probably were already in like their 30s or 40s for some of them. So they had kind of grown up in the early 1900s when Masonry was still relevant. Masonry started losing its relevance around the 1940s or 50s, right around the same time that insurance started to get paired with your job. Once all of a sudden you could go and get a job somewhere and they would provide you with all the extra insurance that you would need. And then you also these resume kind of building Rolodex. People started using Rolodexes and stuff. Like all of those things slowly phase out the need for Masonry among these guys that are basically going to Ivy League schools and they can afford to be in school for 20 years, which already eliminates all the po-folk. So that's kind of one of the answers to that. And Mormons, I would assume, is because that's, again, the most compatible religion, it seems, in my mind.
I mean, the indoctrination is already done. As what I can find on a quick Google search, and I know we did this on Mormons in Space, but Don Peterson was LDS, Michael Cassiat was, Senator Jake Garn was, Rick Searfrost, Don Lind, and I think there's a few more. So, and they run these programs. And so, of course, like when you're talking about infiltration of 3-letter agencies, it would make sense that they would infiltrate into NASA as well. Like I just told you guys about a senator that had just been in that only. And actually he was related to one of the prophets as his grandson or something. And then on top of it, he's in Watergate and everything else. And find out later he's in the CIA. So, I mean, I think it's just the infiltration of all of the different 3-letter agencies involved. And you have to understand, from where I live in northern Utah, there is an Air Force base, the IRS, the NSA, the FBI supercomputer thing that holds all the information. And I think there's one more. There's like 5. So they recruit heavily here. They do a lot of that stuff. So it doesn't surprise me that it would end up in NASA. Like, I mean, sure. Yeah.
Someone said if we're going to talk about Mormons and Mason Astronaut and Andre,
or Andre,
he will be bummed. He had an open invite, but also he's in another country. He's in a completely different time zone right now. So
and this all started.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, we started this conversation because I brought up to Paranoid American about the Twilight books, and he was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Oh, she's a Mormon." And again, here we get into all of everlasting life, white and delightsome and sparkly. Don't forget sparkly.
Yeah, I get it now. I totally get that the vampirism is also something that Mormons would, I guess, identify with more than others. But it's another perfect example because the whole modern idea of a vampire is not that far removed from the origins of Mormonism. So it's not like it was this old fuddy-duddy thing compared to all the other religions. It's like this was like kind of in vogue. So why not incorporate some of the romance of the everlasting life and the white and delightsome and sparkly and being able to travel long distances and divinate.
Do you know how she came up with these books? Did you hear?
She found Twilight? A seer stone, I heard. And a frog was protecting them.
She had a dream, and it was imparted to her. She actually said she didn't write any of this, that it was literally a download. It was literally a download. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting, because she said she had no interest in vampires or had hardly ever written or read anything about vampires. And she literally dreamt it on, and she knew the date on June 2nd of 2003 was the date that she fell asleep, and it was almost like sleep paralysis, and it all came to her in a download. So there's that.
But then her whole download, this whole divine Mormon story, just turns into a teenage romance movie.
Well,
right?
Well, let's look at the comparisons. We've got the dad who is extra fair, white and delightsome, and creates the whole family for everlasting life. He's obviously Joseph Smith. That's obviously a parody. And then we've got the love story there with her, and she is rising to the priestess, goddess, and evolving into what? A goddess herself, eventually by the end of the show. And it takes her 3 days to actually change. And I read the books as well. It takes her 3 days to actually change and complete that. So we're going biblical there. I find it very interesting as well that there is a Native American tribe associated. We know very well about the Lamanites in the Book of Mormon. And what happened to them? They received a curse of dark skin, but also a curse. So again, we get to the vampires on one side and the werewolf curse on the other, where they can't control it. And so it's kind of interesting, I think. Little parody there.
Well, I mean, vampires are transhumanist almost by definition. They just didn't take the technology route, but they did transform from something other than human while starting as human, right? Or at least the made vampires, maybe not the granddaddy like original ones that came from what is it, Pazuzu, or all of the
Right.
older, wind demons, all of those guys,
A
the Lilith
Wendigo
and
and
the
yeah.
Lils.
Well, and also look at how they waited. They got married very young. They waited and were moral until after they got married. Very Mormon all the way around. Also trying to overcome the nature of man by resisting temptation. Like all of this plays so easily into Mormonism. And even a quote that Bella said is she couldn't fathom him being her boyfriend. Quote, I needed something more expressive of eternal commitment. I mean, there it
And
is.
also, if you take a Mormon in regular human years, right? If you're Bloodstone dude, it's Brigham Young. If you're Brigham Young, Bloodstone dude, that's what I call him to myself. But if you're Brigham Young, you got to squeeze all these 40 or 50 wives you've got into a lifetime or in a half a lifetime, right? Because you're not going to be marrying them and scooping up your last 10 years. Maybe he did, and you're definitely not in the first 10 years. So you've only got like a slight chunk of your life to do that. But if you're a vampire, then you can probably also have 40 or 50 wives, but it would just be over a longer
55. Yeah.
period of time.
Yeah, 55
So
of
many.
them.
55 is a lot.
Right. I can't imagine. And he also wasn't procreating the earth like he said he was going to do, because there's less than one child per wife. So I just am like, okay. But then you get into weird stuff again too. Like we're talking about all of this, eternal life and all white and delightsome and perfect in every way. Is this like a nod to the genealogy being messed with? Like your race being messed with? Like, are they splicing? Who knows what? I do find it interesting that, the Mormon mafia was completely over Howard Hughes stuff, and Howard Hughes Medical continues to this day. And one of the things that they very much focus on is all a bunch of DNA. And on top of DNA, what else do they focus on? They focus on splicing. They focus on what's the freaking thing that the kid supposedly killed himself. Why can't I think of that right now? The technology of printing, DNA printing. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I don't.
Oh, I'll think of it in a second.
Okay. Some kid took exit stage left from DNA printing.
Yeah, it's everybody talks about it anymore. I just can't remember what it's called. So I'll think of it in just a second. CRISPR. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Oh,
CRISPR
okay.
technology.
Yeah.
And that is one of their main focuses. And who runs all that corporation now? The Mormons, the Gay Foundation. So I just think that it's very interesting. I mean, look at the freaking prophet. He's 100 years old, you guys. He's 100 years old. I mean, he figured out something.
Don't vampires also hide their secret names? I think that's in one of the lores. Do you remember your secret name? I asked you that before. What was your secret name?
Oh, mine's Abigail. Yes, Abigail.
If someone was like shouting that out in public, would you turn your head for any reason, or would it just go right by?
Nah, it's well, because you only hear it once. You go through the first time for yourself, and that's the time that they tell you your name, and that's the only time they tell you your name, and you never say it again, ever.
That would be an awesome Mormon trick if you could just immediately call Mormons by their second name.
Oh man, I don't think anybody would answer. Yeah, I don't think they would, just only because of the fact that you only hear it the one time, and then boop, it's done. So I think it's funny that all of these things that we kind of study though go completely into like transhumanism in some sort of way. And we both know that Joseph Smith was way more hermetic than people would like to say. And so was actually Brigham Young continued it. It did end after, I would say, about the fourth prophet. I would say by then they were just kind of like, okay, we're done, But they try. What I saw about the names is they got all the names for the guys like out of the Bible and whatnot, but then they didn't have enough for women because there's not much in the Bible about women. So they started using the names of Joseph Smith's wives. That's what I heard.
That's, I mean, not exactly the same, but that's similar with Eastern Star. Eastern Star is basically, the female version of Masonry. And the 5 points are the 5 heroic women of the Bible. But it's like after you get through those 5, the list is a little bit light. So a lot of the ritual tends to revolve around those 5 characters, and there's not like a million different appendant bodies. There might be like a couple.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's the same problems. Maybe he inherited those problems because of how much Mormonism was based on Freemasonry. So it came along with some of the limitations.
Right, right. And there are, with the transhumanism, there are quite a few groups that are like literally you can Google Mormon transhumanism and there are literal groups that will pop up. I'm sure Andreas knows much more about this than I do, but yeah, there's one dude that like measures his erections and takes tons of vitamin. I don't know what his name is, but Exmo Joe told me about him. Go Exmo Joe.
Yeah, no, right. I mean, there's a handful of them, but a lot of them basically have these huge tubs of just pills, and they're ingesting like hundreds of dollars of pills every day. Some of them have their little blood boys that hang around with them, and they just jack in when they are feeling a little bit down. That must be kind of nice, though, that you could just like Uber over like some 18-year-old quarterback and just be like, I'm not feeling good today. And then you just do a little swapperoo, and now
Oh
it's like you're
man.
ready to go and attack the world.
Well, I will.
Is that
I
beyond
mean,
their blood
I don't know,
transfusions
but I will
outside?
tell you, I don't know, what really goes on, but I'll tell you a story that I heard from Zachary King. And for those that don't know, Zachary King is an ex-satanic high wizard. And he said to me once long ago, clear like in the early 80s, he had gone to some desert hideout, some rich person, and they were there. And he came and greeted him and said, you'll have to wait a couple hours because I need to finish my transfusion. And so he went in and got his stuff done. And he said that guy de-aged like 30 years by the time he came back out. So I don't know. I don't know.
That honestly, that's going to be the thing, because I guess I'm not big into end of days revelation, like fully pushing it and buying it, but I find it absolutely fascinating because it is I've, for someone that's actually read the Bible 3 or 4 times end to end, because there were no other books at my disposal for stretches of my life we won't get into. But you end up reading the Bible over and over again, and man, between all the quotes of Solomon and then Revelation, the rest of it's kind of filler to me, and maybe that's sacrilege, but the rest of it just didn't capture my attention. Every time you get to Revelation, it's like the best twist M. Night Shyamalan ending of a book, where you're like, well, where was this at? Where was this at when I was just reading people's names and dates for like a week straight in the freaking book of Numbers? But I think that Revelation stuff, it's a little bit, it adds a little bit of extra spice to it, but that the occultism also lines with Mormonism a little bit. But that, I don't even know, do Mormons care about the book of Revelation? Does it come up at all?
Yeah, no, they definitely do. They definitely do. I mean, they use the Bible, but they will twist it to their will by saying it's only accurate in as much as it's translated accurately. So they will switch and have Joseph Smith's take on it. There is such a thing called the Joseph Smith translation of the
Of
Bible, but
Revelation?
of all the Bible, the entire Bible.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That's a whole episode, I think, that
That
we can
is
just
a whole
compare
episode.
the real book of Revelation,
It would
quote
take
unquote
us
real, and then his.
whoa. Yeah. And he also, says he's going, Mormons believe that not just Jesus is coming back, that Joseph Smith is coming back. And they talk about these canes that I told you about in the last show, about the death canes and the coffin canes that were made from all their grody juices being all over them. And then they made them new coffins and say they chucked their bones in there, but I think they really have their
Mhm.
bones. But
You just
who
gotta do
knows
an
where they,
upgrade. You
yeah,
just
yeah.
gotta, yeah, we're just bumping them up a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know, but they say in the last days, one prophet let it slip because they also braided their hair and put it in the knob, and so they said these kings are gonna be, like, very important in the last days, so, I don't know.
We
Very
have
gross.
one fan of Book of Numbers in the chat. Shout out, Chris. I mean, no shade. I'm not like saying that it's like a bad book, but man, it was the most boring part of the Bible. And I've read it multiple times, so I'm not just talking out of my ass too much. But it was just the word begat like 1,000 times with names in between over and over. I get it's
Right,
sort of the
right.
genealogy, so maybe Mormons would find the Book of Numbers more fascinating than I do because it would just be like scrolling through every single page of ancestry.com and just reading all the names and like deriving something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I've heard different things about this. And when they talk about, genealogies of people, I've also heard it talking about like the Nephilim tribes and they're very, very, very like obsessed with the tribes of Israel. That's why there's the golden oxen holding up that bath for the baptisms for the dead. So, I mean, they get into it. They're very into last days and prophecies and then they like some things and then they'll chuck other things out. Like they'll turn around, they'll turn around and say, "Oh, that never happened." And they'll put it in this big book of things that never happened. And there's tons of them. They're called the Journal of Discourses. And that's all the
Right.
things. That's where Kolob went. Yeah, is in there. And
It's
also
kind of
the
like
Adam God
it's kind of like
theory.
the Talmud is have heard that described in a similar way that it's just a long book of discussions and not necessarily canon, but just someone took really great records on every weird theory anyone ever had and related to all this, and they put it in this huge book. So it sounds like the Mormons just have their own version of that.
I mean,
The
definitely
junk
they
is like
have,
a
and
junk drawer or what?
they literally make it like a Bible, like, it's like Journal of JOD, Journal of Discourses, and then they're like chapter 4, book 1, number 17. Like, they've got it all, like, categorized and, the big speech of King Follett speech is in there. Like, everything that sounds a little hokey or weird or hermetic is in those things. So, I mean,
What about this is a little bit of a tangent, but we were talking about like all the secret society aspect and the secret names and doing things covertly. And there's this concept of the Council of 50 that was supposed to have dissolved in the late 1880s. Do you think the Council of 50 still exists? And what I guess describe to me what it is so I'm not relying on like a Wikipedia definition.
well, there's the quorum of the 70 now. And so, yeah, I don't think, there's the 12 apostles, the quorum of the 70, and then the church head, prophet, and then the first and second counselor. And, just like this guy, Mr. Smith said, prophets are prophetic unless they are not. He's absolutely right. Every single time it's inconvenient for them that somebody says something. They're like, well, he was just a man. But follow the prophet, but he's just a man if he's wrong or they need to change it or whatever is happening in evolution of the world, and then they'll switch it. And so, they get out of it. It's so slippery. It's as slippery as Joseph's treasure. I don't
I
know.
can't tell if this comment was a joke. Joseph Smith
No.
coming back too. Is this on the table? Would
Oh, that's
Joseph Smith
funny.
himself come back at any point? Do Mormons
Yeah.
believe that or
No,
no?
they believe that. Yeah.
Like
Yes.
like his body comes
Yes.
out of the ground and he's like,
Yeah. Yep.
would he be
Like
the
just like
same
Jesus.
age?
They say this is what the Mormons say, supposedly. This isn't canon. This is just talk between Mormons, is that you go back to whatever was the best time of your life. So if that was your 30s, then you go back to that. If that was your 20s, then you go back to that. So yeah, it's a thing.
I guess I didn't realize that either. But does Joseph Smith come back the same way everyone potentially comes back, or is he special that he comes back?
I mean, he is the prophet, seer, and revelator in the original one. I mean, if we worship anyone else other than supposed Jesus, it is Joseph Smith for sure. They worship him as a god.
Would he come back and look like Joseph Smith, or could he come? You know how like in Eastern religions they'll be like, oh, here's the new Buddha we've known since he was like 2, like some baby, and everyone's worshiping the baby, and they
No,
grow up and they're like, oh, I guess I'm some weird prophet. Or would it
no,
be like
I think
Joseph
it's
Smith comes
actual.
back, he's
Mhm.
still an adult, he still looks like Joseph Smith, and he's like, hey, I'm back.
Well, and to that point, they say it's that, but here's a little conjecture on my end. We're always talking about these angels all throughout, not only Mormonism, right? But we know about Moroni, who's a supposed angel, but actually he's not an angel because he's a dead guy. So, like, we're talking about spirits, and Joseph Smith readily admitted that he saw 26 spirits and or dead people, including John the Baptist. So when we're talking about this, it again applies back to the Meyer books, where she's what? Looking up to and worshiping these supernatural beings. And we got to get into what the Mormons call God. They call him Elohim. Well, Elohim's a title, it isn't really a name. And so when you're talking about that, it makes you wonder, what exactly would come back, and could it disguise itself as Joseph Smith? I mean, I think that we've all seen from Dr. John Dee's writings that actually, the angels kind of lie all the time. I mean, he literally said that, and it scared Edward Kelly so bad that he was trying to get the hell away from the whole thing multiple times. He was like, I'm out. I'm done with this. Like, get me out of here. I think that we could easily be fooled by something that came back saying it was Joseph Smith to that point. So, but I do think it would look like him, like what they think he looked like. There was no picture until
literally a vampire. We're just talking about vampires at this point.
White and delightsome. He had, I find something really interesting when we go back to Lori Vallow. She was obsessed when she was talking to Chad Daybell. He said he saw Jesus Christ, and she kept saying, and he had blue eyes, right? He had blue eyes, right? I mean, she was really weird on this call. And so I'm like, that's really strange that she would go on and on and on about that. There was something with that. There's more to the story there than what we know. And again, that goes back, moving esoteric and exoteric. Like, come on, they're moving the game. But I think she found some stuff out, and she wasn't quite mentally sound. And then here we are, so yeah.
I've got a good horror movie to pitch that are along these lines, where Joseph Smith and all these other prophets, they do try and come back, but they realize they're missing like a femur or like an arm or something, because some guy out there's got a freaking cane made out of their bones. So now, before they can fully resurrect, they have to hunt down all these artifacts that have been made out of their bones and like reacclimate them into their body. And only then can Joseph Smith fully come back. But first, he's going to haunt the shit out of you.
I mean, it would be a good one. And we know that the current prophet, seer, and revelator of the church is a Skull and Bones member. So little do we know what's really in the altars that they have, huh? So, yeah.
I mean, the Catholics do it too. Catholics have got all sorts of preserved bones and bodies down there.
And they're on top of all of them, but at least I think they're all intact, aren't they? Don't they try to keep them in one place?
I mean, there's a lot, but there is a lot of controversy around if they're even like the same bones, and like there wasn't a great chain of custody, especially when your entire chain of custody records are like, oh, don't worry, they're in the Vatican archives, we got a handle on it. But even when I was a kid and I ended up going to the Vatican, like any good Catholic Mason would have when they grow up. But I remember seeing some of these different like weird old bodies with like the glass cases on the coffins, like buried under the church, and they were all like shiny because people would like rub their hands on it. It was really weird. And all I could think of is like, these people are going to come back and they're going to be mad that no one was like putting moisturizer on them. They were like, you guys, you could have taken better care of us. Like, you just let us wither and like turn into these raisins here. So now they come back and they're going to live forever, but as raisins.
Well, I mean, we just don't know, but I do find it interesting that they dug up, not only Joseph, but his brother multiple times. They also dug up his brother Alvin. There was a newspaper article for this, you guys. You can look it up. It was ran in the Palmyra. It basically said, we are going to dig him up because you said we dug him up, but we want to show you we didn't dig him up by digging him up. What? Like, okay. And so, yeah, I mean, they want to come off that it wasn't nefarious, but like, that's the best pre-gaming ever. Cause then if your neighbor saw you, you can be like, yeah, I put it in the paper. Didn't you see that? Like,
I get it. It's almost like telling someone like, no, don't worry. If I punch you, it won't hurt. Here, let me punch you and I'll prove to you that it won't hurt. Like you got to be all in order to get the proof, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And who knows really what they're doing, they kept saying, oh, we're moving it for this reason and we're moving it for that reason. But in between that, they're making gooey coffin canes full of dead people sludge and putting their hair in the top of them. Like, that doesn't sound quite right. Like, what's happening there? Why are you desecrating bodies? Like, that seems unnecessary, but yeah, okay.
Joseph
Yeah,
Smith
no
is
kidding.
Neo in the Matrix. Maybe. I
Oh
mean,
boy, maybe so.
not according to Heidi, but I might entertain that.
Yeah, I mean, you never can tell, but
All right.
there's pictures of these canes.
This
Yeah,
is
the
another thing that
transhumanist.
came up. And did you already know about this? I can't remember if you
Mhm.
showed me this or Andreas showed it to
Yes,
me.
yes, yep.
This is the Mormon Transhumanist Association, and they've kind of got a pretty good website. Like, I'm already a little bit interested. And it's all about what kind of heaven will you create. They've got their elder is named Elder Gong, which is kind of a cool name too. And they've got this
Eh,
entire website all set up about how Mormonism and transhumanism are completely compatible. And I mean, how deep have you looked into this?
not a ton, but a little bit. Little bit. Yeah,
So
it's
I'll
interesting.
give some of the highlights because I found this really freaking interesting. So they've got a whole. I'm not going to read the entire website. They describe what transhumanism is. So I guess here's the Mormon definition according to transfigurism.org. This is is it called again? The Mormon Transhumanist Association. So they define transhumanism as a growing intellectual movement grounded in ideas about science and technology in deliberate ethical ways to improve and transform ourselves in the world. That to me is a little too vague to actually mean anything in particular, because there's just a lot of like 2 cent words in there, I guess.
Hmm.
And then it says the term encompasses humanism, a tradition that places value on human life, human flourishing, human agency. Transhumanism adds to this by advocating that human beings should transcend our current state by evolving into something new, something effectively post-human. Now, I'm assuming that this doesn't show up in the Book of Mormon, or like even in temple when you walk in, they might like be selling this. So how much of this is like a Church X Andreas flavor of
Yeah, right.
Mormonism versus mainstream Mormonism?
Well, we are missing the wonderful Andreas to tell us how death is a mug's game, right? He
What
posted that.
did anyone ever even mention the concept of technology assisted eternal life? Your entire experience in being an active Mormon?
No, definitely not. I mean, they don't talk about this weird stuff to the sheeple. No way. No way.
They've got a freaking Superman comic here. And it says, limited human imagination often conceives of God as a benevolent dictator, whereas Mormon theology teaches that human redemption and exaltation depend on maximal power sharing. So this is like the communal aspect of Mormonism, but that doesn't actually make a lot of sense to me because you don't necessarily become second anointed in a group setting, right? Like that's
No, no.
it's a one per
It's
person kind
very
of deal.
private. Yeah, and it's not even everybody. You've gotta be, like, put up there for it by your stake president, and then it goes to the 12. So, I mean, definitely no. Mm-mm.
And he's replacing he's replacing the United States flag and the United Nations flag with the Superman flag because he's declaring
Hmm,
himself dictator.
that's weird.
So here's a quote from Doctrine and Covenants. Is this Book of Mormon? Doctrine
Mhm.
and
Yep.
Covenants. The same
Mhm.
sociality which exists among us here will exist among us there, only coupled with eternal glory. So this is just cryogenics. You go to sleep, you wake back up, and you're in the future.
No, thanks. Yuck.
No? Well, what is cryogenics also off the table for you?
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. That's weird.
Real? Well, I'm
I
curious
mean,
now. I'm curious because what about like Lost in Space or space travel or Neighbor, like all these different like if you had
mm,
the Earth is exploding, we've got another planet we can bring you to, but it's going to take however many light years to get there, so you would die on the trip there. But if you just go in this little vessel and someone freezes you real quick, then they can thaw you out in a few light years, and then you're with your family again. That doesn't even sound intrusive, right?
No way. No way. It's not for me. Definitely not. I'm good. I don't wanna be frozen meat. That's weird. Like, I
I don't know,
mean,
but
I'm just
there's
good.
almost a correlation here with like Christian Science, where like I'm not taking that pill, I'm not doing that surgery that could save my life right now, provably, because it's not compatible with my religion. Isn't that just going to be another again in the future? Someone will be like, "What do you mean you're not going to cryogenically freeze yourself this weekend?" It would be like saying that
Right.
you don't believe in aspirin.
Well, I mean, I'm good with it. Like, you know how there's some people that will have 6 months to live, and then they'll say, "But you can do, chemo and have 7." And they do it, and they're sick the whole time, the entire time, instead of just having a good life for 6 months. Like, I'm
Yeah,
good.
no,
Like,
it's a fair point, but also I guess the both of us are getting old enough that we've got retrospect
Wagyu.
in our bias. But imagine that the new trend is like as you're going through school, everyone freezes themselves on the weekends because you don't want to age. And then if you don't freeze yourself like all the cool kids, then by the time you're like a senior in high school, like you look like an old person. You might have, like, if you're a guy, you might have a receding, hair pattern or something just by the time you're getting out of high school. But if you had been freezing yourself during the weekends like everyone else was, then it's almost like you would literally lose connection with your whole generation. Like it
I
doesn't even
mean,
seem like it would even be an opt-in. It would almost be the default. It would be like not
we
having a
had this
phone.
we had this talk yesterday, and this is interesting that you bring this up because we were talking about aging. And so our family was over, and one of the gals, my daughter-in-law, she's like, "Well, what about Botox and stuff? Like, you guys look pretty young, but like everybody around you does it now. And especially in Utah, it's huge. Like in Utah, everybody does like, plastic surgeries of some sort." And so she's like, "Would you do it?" And I said, "Dude, like I can't even have stitches or liquid stitch. Like I try to die every freaking time. So I'm good. Like I don't want to die. Like I'm allergic to everything." And she's like, "Yeah, but like everybody here does it. So at some point will you feel weird because you didn't do it and everybody does it?" Same thing what you just said, right? And I'm like, "I don't know. Like I guess I don't know. I've never thought about it." And she's like, "Well, I mean, would you do?" And I'm like, "Listen, like with my luck, like maybe if I had a different body that wasn't hyposensitive or hypersensitive to everything because of my hypothyroid issues, and it's kind of like lupus because I have Hashimoto's, but I've already tried to die a couple times just from regular people's stuff, like stuff other people can do that I cannot do. So I wouldn't personally, but like also I like moving my eyebrows. Like they're cool, you know? I don't know, but I see everybody around me and yeah, most of them are doing it. So at what point do you sell in? It's kind of like the thing that happened in 2020. And again, like are you part of the crowd enough where you will just, go ahead and do that? So I don't
But see,
know.
it's to me, it's such a sliding scale because what to us might feel extreme right now, you would never in a million years, I would never get a Neuralink or whatever. But I mean, people 20, 30, 40 years ago be like, I would never have a phone in my pocket 24/7 that I'm constantly. I wouldn't
It's
live
true.
my life through a phone. I wouldn't be staring at screens for most of my day. And now it's almost like commonplace to where people are trying to not do that because that is the default. So if you were to take another 50 years from now, all the things that me and you might clutch our pearls over would just be like, come on, grandma, get on board. Like get into the freaking
Yeah.
ice tray.
I think for me, just me personally, because you asked me my opinion, I
Right.
never folded in 2020 and I don't think I would because once I put my foot in the sand like with something, I'm like you've got to show me something so amazing to make me get on board with something that the herd does. I'm just like, "Nah." Like I'm always the person that's like, "Nope." And I also am like the person in a room where I'm like, "Yep, everybody's a serial killer." So, I mean, for
Right.
me,
I have
I'm
the same thing when I
unusual.
go out driving. I also I-4 in Orlando that basically connects all of Florida, but it is the one of the worst highways in the entire country, like in terms of fatalities. So every time I go out driving, like I'm a little white knuckly just because I am convinced that everyone on the road is out to kill me, or they don't care enough about their own lives that even if they did take me out by accident, like they would be okay with it. And that sort of is a healthy paranoia, I think, right?
Right. That's different. Although my friend Eczema Joe, once again, Hellfire Agency, he's hilarious. He did say to me one day, he said, I hate driving in Utah. I said, yeah, it sucks here. And he goes, they drive like death can't touch them, probably because they all are going to live forever.
Yeah, if you're
And I
second
was
anointed,
like,
do you
oh
even
my
wear a
gosh.
seatbelt?
Yeah. Why? Why bother? Huh. Whatever.
There's a good comment here, and I guess
So
this is
funny.
a good observation. So the difference, I guess, in transhumanism is that one is special as God made us versus changing to match the Freemasonic socialist goals based on knowledge as savior, which is Luciferianism. I would I would shoehorn in a little nuance there that even like the original Masonic founders of the country were staunchly deists, not necessarily atheist or agnostic. But I guess my understanding of a deist is more like God created everything, but then just like lost interest, and he's playing in like another place now. We're like the abandoned mall, and we've got the devices left to us that he made, so we've got these divine things to work with. But that's my understanding is deists don't necessarily believe in like a god coming back to save everyone, so you are kind of in on it on your own. Like it's up to you to make the best of it. So I don't know. Maybe that is also Luciferianism in a way, if you're not completely giving yourself over to the second coming.
Well, I mean, we have to remember that Lucifer is Jesus's brother for Mormons, and he's the one that gives us our powers and priesthoods in the temple. Don't
How
forget.
does how does that work? So
Oh,
Lucifer was literally Jesus' brother?
oh, no, literally,
Like
Jesus is
twins or what? Who came first?
no,
Who's older?
he's older. Jesus is older, but Lucifer was the one that like he wanted to do it and make everyone mind. And it was very specific. If you guys have ever seen the weird cartoon that was for Mormons, and people send it to me all the time about people of color, and they say, is this actually true? And I'm like, yes, it is for them until 1978. But yes, this was their theology. This is based on it. And it's on my IG if you guys want to go look at it. But I just think it's strange that a lot of people don't realize that when Adam is crying out and gets thrown out of Eden, he's crying out to God, and who shows up? Lucifer. And he used to wear a Masonic apron with all of the signs and symbols on it, but people got weird, so they made it just black. So now he wears a black one, and he says, "What is that?" And he says, "This? Oh, this is a sign of my powers and priesthoods." I think there's a little knowledge there, right? And so he says to Adam, why don't you put something on? So everyone stands in the temple and they say, now put your apron on, because Lucifer said so. And so, I mean, I don't know exactly who they're worshiping there. That's why I always question who their Jesus is, right? So, yeah, I agree. I agree. White
I
knuckling
actually
it.
have a really good trick for this now. I don't white knuckle anymore. But now I can still maintain my same level of paranoia, but in my mind, I convince myself that I'm driving to a family reunion, and that car that keeps swerving into my lane and almost hitting me, like that's my grandpa, and he's just doesn't know what the hell's going on. But he doesn't hate me or want to kill me, but he might still kill me on accident. So
I
that at least is
mean,
a way where I'm not like feeling attacked or antagonistic towards everyone. It's almost like I care about these other people on the road, but they will kill me if I don't pay attention.
it's a real thing. Driving, you have to be. I mean, Utah is one of the worst drivers, period. And so it's a whole situation. You can't just be a defensive driver here. You almost have to play a video game and be like an offensive driver here. So I get it. I get it. Yeah. It doesn't
I
end
assume
well.
that they're all driving those huge SUVs out there too.
Oh, for sure. Or, but I mean, they don't really care. I mean, they are mean. They like, how you're supposed to let people in? They don't do that either. I mean, they literally won't let you in. You have to be very strategic about what you're doing. It's very scary. It
You
can
need
be
like a
very,
secret
very scary.
handshake for them to let you into
You
traffic.
You just have to be kind of a dick. And you always have to put it in the back of your mind that not if this person will cut you off, they are going to cut you off. So you need to leave enough space that you can get through, but also that you can't leave too much space because then you're going to get cut off. So it's a whole situation.
See, this gets into sort of dodgy territory with me because it starts to highlight the pros of these autonomous driving vehicles. Like, and I already know the cons. The cons are that now you can't drive wherever you want, and once that gets extreme enough, now you can't go there at all. And if you do, it's almost like you're committing a crime or you're alerting authorities. Like, you just won't be able to go to that bad part of town anymore if that's where your family lives, or that's where you go and get your black market cybernetic sort of like USB drives to upgrade yourself. But it also means that you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about people cutting you off, or if they do, it was just a bug, and oh well, that was just your fault for having a bug in the system that day.
Well, did you see this new movie that's coming out with Robert Pattinson? Speaking of a bug and all this weird transhumanism stuff,
from
where
Twilight,
he gets
right? Wasn't he in
yes,
Twilight?
where he dies over and over and over and over. Have you seen this?
I haven't, and I'm going to, because I swear to you, this is my favorite crappy movie or like story plot is like the Groundhog Day thing. I watch every single movie that has this. Well, they're not all good. There's actually a lot of bad ones, but I'll watch them all.
Yeah, based off of this guy that they actually kill over and over. Joe told me about this, and that he actually says this is a real thing, and he's on the cover of somebody's, and he's the one that writes all the songs in Hollywood. Anyway, he wrote Hotel California, if anybody knows who this is. But I just only listened to it a little bit because we were just chatting. We didn't do a whole show on it yet, but it was very interesting. But Robert Pattinson is coming out on this show, and I found it very interesting that he also was in Twilight about everlasting stuff. Then he's in this. I just think there's a lot of, it's very, very weird.
Is he a Mormon?
Nope, he's not Mormon. I don't know what's up, but
well, not yet. After he dies, he'll be Mormon.
Right. Well, maybe one of his lives, right? And
Can
so
you baptize someone that's still
called
living?
Mickey, you guys, it's called Mickey 17. And he sacrifices himself to science, literally in the trailer. Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17 in the clip. He plays a man named Mickey who volunteers to be expendable and is repeated deaths over and over and over in a futuristic world. So this is coming out.
I'm in. I mean, this is right up my alley. Source Code, Groundhog's Day, Happy Death Day. What was the one? Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise is probably one of the better ones. Have you seen all these?
Not all of these. I've not seen Tom Cruise one.
I think it's called Edge of Tomorrow. My opinion, it's a phenomenal movie, but again, I'm super biased. Not just towards those movies, but to Tom Cruise movies.
Oh, gotcha. Even though he abandoned his daughter and he's a skank.
Especially because of that. That's actually my favorite part of him. he named his daughter after like a Scientology alien deity, Siri, right?
Yeah.
And then he abandoned him.
I don't know. He's something. But then now Jamie Foxx is raising her, right? And he's a new guy. I mean, they already expended him.
Is that true? I've never heard that.
I don't. No, yeah, no, that's true. But I mean, the whole Jamie Foxx thing. I mean, I just did a show with Catalyst about celebrity clones, and I mean, I think they figured it out. You know, they keep getting
Mormonism
whiter and more delightsome, right? Like, look at Beyonce; she's white now. Like, I don't know.
Would Mormonism be compatible with cloning? It seems like it would.
I think that all the genealogy and research is for something. Yeah, I think it's very interesting.
Palm Springs a Groundhog Day movie? I don't think I've seen that one.
Okay.
If it is, I'll have to watch that one.
Yeah. It seems very weird that they're very into anything that's on the new wave of things. They're very into like, oh, this new thing or that new thing, and they're funding a lot of this. They're funding a lot.
It's a great strategy because and let's say the cryogenic thing, since that was like you wouldn't pass that line. But if there was a group of people that were like, no, that's incompatible with my religion, or for whatever reason, I'm not doing it. If Mormons as a whole embraced it and it worked, well, now that means that there's a potential future where there's way more Mormons than anyone else because they were able to integrate this new technology into their belief system, so there would be less qualms about it. Because even if you're an atheist,
well, they can keep the people that were most important as well, right? All their prophets. So
now here's an even better question: do you stick them in the back of the freezer, or do you keep them towards the front so they
no,
don't
you
get
put them in
freezer
the
burn?
Batman cave. You put them in the Batman cave. What do you think is in there? They got razor wire going the opposite way, like to keep things in. I don't know. It's very strange. I feel like there is a lot of unexplained things for Mormons, and I feel like their stockholdings speak as well as what they've been involved in general. So
Right.
I don't, I don't blow all that off. It's very, I don't know. Yeah, it's strange. Oh, there we go. Tom
I didn't
Cruise.
even know. Now there's someone saying it followed the book. I didn't even. What book? Edge of Tomorrow? Was Edge of Tomorrow a book?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But interesting nonetheless that all of this stuff seems to continue. And like I said, Mormons are very pushed to be on the edge of technology. They are, a very Republican red state. They're very all about Elon. Like, I can't tell you how much I'm in a thread with my family right now, my husband's family, actually. And they all hated him a couple years ago. And now they can't stop. And it's driving me crazy, but I don't want to be that dick that leaves. Because I'm like, ugh. And I just am like, I don't know, you guys. You did see the pictures of him doing secret Masonic handshakes with Biden, didn't you?
I
I got
mean,
it.
I'm dubious on this just because why would you even do a secret handshake with Biden? He probably can't even feel his hands, and even if he were a Mason, he probably wouldn't even know or remember that he was a Mason. And
Oh, no.
this isn't the first time that they would be meeting, so I guess I would just assume that there would be no practical reason for them to do a public Freemasonic handshake like that. It's
Well,
typically reserved for meeting someone
let me show
new,
you.
and you're not at liberty to say out loud, "Hey, man, I'm a Mason." So like, there's certain ways that you would indicate that to yourself. But again, these people have people that would like look into all this for them, so they would get a whole freaking itinerary and a whole dossier on the person they're about to meet. You
Here
wouldn't
we
wait
go.
until the handshake happens.
Well, there's no disputing this.
I mean, I'll dispute that. It's the thumb's not even on a knuckle. The thumb's in the
Come
fleshy part of
on.
his.
We're talking about the paw, the lion's paw, not the
That's
other
not.
paw.
That is absolutely not a lion's grip. Not even
And
close.
this
The
for Mormons,
lion's grip would mean his hand would have to be reaching over his entire wrist. You wouldn't be holding him by the hand, because the whole point of the lion's grip is that the flesh would rip away from your hand. So if you were to try and lift someone out of a grave the way he's holding it, you would just rip the fingers off. So you need the lion's grip in order to hold around their wrist bone so you can pull them up with more force.
how about this fun little nugget?
The cross of Jerusalem, which I mean,
He got in trouble for. He
it's
got in
Templar
trouble for this.
related. How do you get in
Yeah.
trouble? It's been
He-
on his body for how long?
Yeah, no, he was on some secret missions that he was held off of because he had it. Look that up. It's interesting. But I'm just saying,
I feel like I'm just as open to being a Templar as I would to be a Mormon. I don't know. Out of
Well,
those two, which
yeah.
would be better, a Templar or a Mormon?
Shit, I don't even know. Here's a fun one from the past, since somebody mentioned Romney. Little blast from the past there. I
You
think
could
that
make an
these are all
argument that Romney is sort of a modern day Templar, maybe
Yeah,
less fighting and like bloodshed, but the Templars were really just bankers.
Well, and I think that it's interesting that, like I said, I mean, the Martinists definitely go along with, a lot of Templar teachings. And so I think the Psalmodic stuff being integrated in there, and how dark it gets, right? Like, it's not normal. I mean, it's just not. It's very strange and unusual, the practices that they do. And when I say normal, I mean no disrespect, but honestly, I'll just show a picture. Like, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and it's exactly what led me to this, is because it was so strange. Sorry about my janky back and forth, but here we go. This is current day Martinism, because that's not abnormal at all. Right. So you
I
guys
mean,
can check
rogues
out.
are fun. LARPing is fun. Let's just be honest.
Right. I mean, it's interesting. It's very interesting. I'll say that.
Is it
Oh,
is it a coincidence
should I
that
show
the
the death cane again? Here's the death cane knob with the hair in it. And then it has
right?
like, and
So whenever whose is this anyways? Brigham Young
this
or
this was presented. So these canes, there's multiple of them, but this wooden cane has hair embedded in the knob, which is reported to be braided locks of Joseph and Hiram. This cane is also said to have been made from the wood of the coffins holding the Smith brothers before they were moved to their final resting places. And this was presented by Brigham Young to Sidney Rigdon, which is interesting because if you look up, we got to do one on Sidney Rigdon because many people conjecture that he is the branch that continued the magical practices, and they say that the dark side of Mormonism, and they call it the church of the church of Satan inside the Mormon church. So that his like progeny actually carried this on. Now, this is not Heidi saying this. This is podcasters saying this. So
like
I don't
a
know.
Mormon Darth Vader of sorts?
She was on, it's very funny. She was on tinfoil hat and she was on really like hitting the road, with everything going in hot. And then all of a sudden she just disappeared. And so she like removed her channel, removed everything. She used to be on a like 90 Day Fiance or something like that. But I'm trying to remember her name right now, but I'll figure it out. But yeah, she went on Sam. So interesting. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the next one we should talk about the Sydney guy. I already forgot his name. I'm
Sidney
horrible.
Rigdon.
I
It's a
can't see
big,
a face. I can't remember the name. It's how it works.
that's a big rabbit hole for sure, because there's a lot of, the thing about Mormonism is, and Sidney Rigdon also had a magical seer stone and also had his own revelations, and Joseph said, cut it out. So supposedly these were burned, but maybe not. Right, his revelations. So a lot of people conjecture that he broke off, and he was supposed to be actually probably the carry on of the Mormon church. But Brigham Young and him had sort of like a debate, and he was sick that day, and he's not overly charismatic. And Brigham Young is very charismatic and also was like, we're going to do it this way. This is the way. And people were sick of being thrown out of everywhere. They wanted a good, solid leader. So, of course, they went with Brigham Young because he left no next in command other than his son, and his son
He
was
was the Trump
11.
of the time. He kind of Brigham
Yes,
Young sort of
he
comes
was.
across as a Trump to me.
Yes, and he was all about money. He was the one that integrated more of the money situation and working with the government, I do believe. He was the one integral in, hooking up and doing like the railroad, and we have Promontory Point here. Like, I mean, he was very integral in all this, the development. So, yeah. Yep.
Is there do you have a general feel on Mormons and Trump? Like, were they?
Oh, they love him.
Okay.
Oh, but
like the Amish.
but years ago, they hated him because he talked about the
counter to Romney.
PUSS, he talked about the what. And so grab her in the, yeah, it didn't go over well.
So that made it Mormons clutch their pearls?
Very much so.
Just
Yeah,
because he happens to like felines?
Well, you can't say that. So literally, I watched my in-laws go from like hating him because he said such a thing to loving him. And literally they're like texting like in the middle of the night, like, yay. And I'm like, okay, this is about pocketbooks now. But like, that's fine. I get it. I mean, I get it. Like, I'm apolitical, so I don't really care because I think it's all theater. I mean, are you not entertained? Right.
I got to admit, I am entertained.
Exactly.
I mean, this is about as good as political theater kind of gets, until they start playing with like the fingers on the button type stuff. That one's not as much my speed, but the one where a wacky president comes out and starts giving everyone nicknames and just making a mockery of everything we hold dear, I'm here for that.
Well,
like that.
And
that's what I
Elon
like.
cackling like a freaking monster have you seen that clip? It's fantastic. I wish I
have. You know what? That really annoys me though, because I know people that do that, and to anyone that does that, no shade, but like where you'll like be reading a newspaper. This, I mean, growing up, no no hate to my mom, but I remember my mom would always do this growing up, where like I'm eating cereal, I'm like doing my thing, getting ready for school, and then she's like on the other side of the room with the newspaper, and you would just hear like a, oh, that's interesting, and it's like, oh, I'm not gonna ask you. I don't care. Whatever it is, I've
That's a
got my own
lot
thing
different.
going on. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
oh
a lot different.
wow. So then
Even the
eventually you're
guy.
like, what? What's the interesting story? That's kind of what Elon, I feel, does. He does that a lot, to where someone will be like, what is it, Elon? What is it that, stemmed you? Did you just get stemmed? Because he's autistic, so everything stems him.
Right.
And then it's like, look at this funny meme someone sent me, and you have to kind of play along because he literally has his finger on the button somewhere.
But Elon's mom, bro. I'm just saying. It's a lot. It's a lot for me.
She's a
I'm like,
vampire. If you told me that she was if she was like Bram Stoker's Dracula,
yeah,
she
she's
kind of
scary.
fits it. She has the silhouette and everything.
Oh my gosh, she's terrifying. And I just think like, okay, and everything he does, it's weird. It's a little weird, but he's very, he's close at hand with everything that's going on, right? He's not really in any political situation, but yet he's in every single picture I've seen of Trump, period, lately. Period. So
This is totally speculative question, but I'm just someone was mentioning magic underwear, the best part of Mormonism, magic underwear. The secret
they
symbols,
updated him. Yeah.
if they made it more comfortable, right? They got like boxers and stuff now.
Oh, no, they had the boxers, but they made a slip.
When does the
dress.
lingerie come out?
I know. I'm actually shocked that they did this because I never thought, literally, you guys, I never thought I would live to see the day. So
Well,
let me show you.
it's happening, and it's happening
Here we
faster than you
go.
ever thought.
Here we go. No bottoms, just the slip.
Wow.
No boxer shorts underneath.
I have a feeling that this was a joke, but I don't know. But someone posted that the Mormons are also considering a butt plug with an LED light that has all of the symbols engraved around the outside,
Yeah,
and that would,
that might work. Yeah.
as long
No.
as you, if we made bumper stickers and put the symbols on a bumper sticker, how many Mormons, if I'm driving around in traffic, how many would actually recognize that?
They would
not a
know,
lot.
but they would say no, they would, but they would be upset. That's like against the
Really?
rules. Oh yeah. No, you don't. This is secret stuff. They do not
Right,
like
but
when
not my rules. This would
I
be like
mean,
a non-Mason writing about like, a Masonic Duncan's ritual or something.
they would be upset. They would be super upset. They are really weird. Like even about handshakes or anything, like if you were to joke about it. That's why, there's been multiple people that have done these things outside of the temple, and you're never supposed to do that ever. So, and I'm talking people that are still in, not people like me talking crap. Like no. Like people that are important. So, who knows?
Would you be as outwardly ex-Mormon if you were in Mexico? Is there like a Mormon Mexican mafia that might take you out, like a cartel?
I mean, probably there might be, but I'm like, whatever. I think I'm in a more dangerous place than anywhere. I'm in
But in Salt
Utah.
Lake City?
So, yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot, but I mean, it is what it is. They have plenty of people out there, not just
Well, like,
me
what's the
talking
most
about this.
dangerous thing that you could do to put yourself at actual, like, physical harm from the Mormon church? Like, if you came out and you were like, here's all the handshakes, here's all the secret words. Like, is there anything you could say? And they're like, someone silence her.
They're careful now. And I will tell you something that I just interviewed Warren Jeff's ex-wife, the 65th wife of Warren Jeff's, Brielle Decker. And she said they still continue to use blood atonement where they live. She's out now, but they continued it. And what they would do is just make it look like an accident. So, yeah, they blood atone there still. So it's very interesting.
That also seems like something a vampire would do. A vampire that puts all of this focus on the blood of someone having some sort of like extra permanence to it.
For sure. And don't forget, Emma Smith wore a lock of Joseph's hair till she died. So all of these things, like at what point, like you mentioned this with the seer stones, at what point is everything a talisman? At what, and you don't just get a magical talisman, by the way, for people that aren't familiar with magic, in the beginning. Like, that's not a thing. So Joseph knew what he was
Yeah,
doing.
you got to get your XP up to like 300. You got to make it to level 7. You got to beat the first 3 or 4 bosses in the castles, and then you get the talisman.
Well, you definitely have to do the things. And I'm just saying, like, they try to make it out like he just had it. Like, oh, that was just something he had. Like, okay, but I mean, they don't want him to look like a practitioner. That's the main thing, because it looks bad. But they also try to like make it down like, oh, well, this is just folk magic, instead of calling it what it is. It's so easy to find out what it comes from or where it stems from. Just look at the Jupiter talisman, put it in Google search. It's going to lead you straight to the Keys of Solomon. So it's not that hard of a dig, because I had this guy come at, oh my gosh, I had this idiot come at me and comment on all my shows and say, I'm the only one that figured this out. I'm the only one that's ever known about Solomonic magic. And I'm like, are you ridiculous? Like, I read books, like there are books. And plus you can't claim this knowledge as your own, because it's out there for like, please find it, people. Like, and Dr. Steven Skinner, he's amazing. He has wrote so many books on this, and so has like Method Infinite, that book. Also, they mentioned this in multiple books. Like, I just don't understand how anyone would think that it's not out there for people to, like, you're not smart enough to put together the talisman and where it came from. Like, that's I mean,
It's an ego thing. I see that happen constantly, especially in this weird space that
weird.
the two of us are sort of in, where someone
Yeah.
will just like outwardly say, like, I'm the first one that ever noticed a triangle in this painting. And you're like, okay, bud, like, have
Yeah.
at it. Unless you painted it.
He came at me. He went and commented on every single show I had on YouTube, not on my page, on other people's
It's a compelling argument. I mean, if you can read someone commenting the same thing over and over on YouTube videos, then maybe they did observe it first.
Yeah, apparently. But I think it's interesting that you would try and take credit for something that has been around for how long?
Well, also, how do you cash that in? It's not like you're like,
Ugh.
I declare I've got a Bitcoin, and now you can cash. Okay, great. You're the first one that recognized
First
that
one
there
ever.
was a purple triangle in some building somewhere. Like, where do you go to convert that into any other type of capital? It's just bragging rights on the internet.
Yeah, it was so funny, and I was just like, "This seems," and I even said, like, "This is unhinged," first of all, but second of all, like, you're not the only one, you're not, and he definitely thinks he is, and he's like, "And I'll die on that hill," and I commented back, but they erased it. It was, I just said, "Well, I think you didn't lose your pompousness when you lost your priesthood," because he's an atheist now.
I mean, honestly, becoming an atheist does seem somewhat pompous, a little bit presumptive. No,
It's weird. I was just like, why would you waste that much time going on all kinds of shows to be ridiculous? Like, everybody sent me emails and were like, bro, weird, very weird. Ooh, vampires are in the Bible?
yeah, someone mentioned too, I don't know where the comment went, but about right here, yeah. Speaking of vampires, the story of the Holy Grail, someone held up a chalice and caught some of the blood. Maybe. I mean, that's one of the interpretations of the Holy Blood, Holy Grail series. I think even as interesting as that, because all that was with the Holy Grail had the holy blood in it, and maybe the blood is DNA. There's also the idea that Mary Magdalene, she was the Holy Grail that carried the blood or whatever.
Right.
But
Well, you do know that Joseph Smith said he literally was related to Jesus.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like the same way David Icke is related to Jesus?
Dude, I haven't gone down the hole on that one big, but I'll tell you what, I've seen it mentioned multiple times, and I'm sure they've tried to be like, stop it, stop. Don't say
because David Icke proclaimed on national TV, this is where he got his big entry into a whole nother realm was that he was a sports announcer, and then he came on TV and declared that he was the son of God. And they
Oh,
were
boy.
like, well, they kind of laughed it off at first, like, what do you mean, David? Ha ha. He's like, no, really, I am the son of God. Like, you mean the son? He's like, yep, the son of God.
Yep.
So I mean, technically, that would be a brother of Jesus, right? A direct blood relative of Jesus,
Hey,
and not just
God
in like
said
a vague
in the
way.
Mormon theology, he had a whole bunch of kids. So
The
who
other
knows?
thing too that I want to mention is that the coolest part of the Jesus blood in the whole crucifixion, which might be a weird sentence, but the coolest part of that was the Lance of Longinus. I think that was his name. This is the Spear of Destiny, and that the guy
Yes.
that was poking JC with the skewer to check and see if he was done yet, that the blood ran down the skewer and it touched him and it cured him of some like eye issue. I think he wasn't fully blind, but he had like was hard of seeing or something, and it completely refreshed him, and he became a saint. Like if he just got it on him, even the dude poking him becomes a saint because of how holy this blood is. Which is kind of wild. I mean, I'm sure there were
they
steps in
do say
between. It was like,
Hitler.
I'm cured, therefore I now believe, and now I get to be a saint. But yeah, and Hitler, what he was after that Spear of Destiny too.
They say he got it. They say he got it. I don't
Well,
know
hear
if he
me out.
did.
If Longinus is able to go from the poker into being a saint, there might be some occult sort of rationale that if you can also extract some of the blood from that spear, then you can also become a saint. It's almost like a Game Genie cheat code in order to get to the last level.
Yeah. And they also, I mean, people also are conjecturing that, the whole reason why we started the war in Iraq and Iran and all this stuff is because the Epic of Gilgamesh, and that they went in to get Gilgamesh's body because of DNA. So I don't know. Have you heard that? Have you heard this?
I've heard from the email leaks about the temples, but no, what was the specific reference here?
That's why the whole reason why the war started was so they could go
so
in
the
there.
same thing that we're talking about. Yeah.
Yep. And so who knows what they really have and where it is, and maybe the Mormons have it in their Batman cave. I don't know.
Between the Mormons and the Vatican now, I do believe that they've got a bunch of the puzzle pieces that nobody else has. Like they at least got, they probably have the corner pieces, and like none of us have the corner or the side pieces.
Agree 100%. Yep. And that they just sent that Trump had a replica of what is it? They just sent it over, and it was in Mar-a-Lago forever.
Ark of the Covenant.
Yes. And I brought this up like months and months and months ago, but I guess apparently they put like some special Torah in there and sent it over. And I was like, Brandon Kroll's the one that brought that up. And I was like, yeah, look at this picture, because I thought it was funny. And it wasn't apparently funny. Apparently it's important. There you go.
Wait, what wasn't funny?
Oh, my picture, because it's real. I thought it was a joke. I thought this was like, we did a show together and he thinks Trump's the Antichrist. So I was like, oh, look at this crazy picture of the Ark of the Covenant with Trump. And apparently it was real. So I just thought it was a joke. So apparently not so much. Yeah. Brandon Kroll can be wild. What's up, Grim?
That sounds a little far-fetched for me. That it's the actual Ark of the Covenant as described in the Bible.
It.
Yeah, of course they rebuilt it. Yeah, I mean,
exact. I guess it's apparently like perfectly.
Maybe. Yeah. I would see Trump saying that, like, it's exact, it's the best. No one's seen another replica better. But he's also the guy that was giving out fake cufflinks to his best friends on their deathbed.
True.
So
yeah, that did happen.
It's like a cubic zirconia Ark of the Covenant with gold plating, but it's actually pewter. big Trump fan.
Asthma. Oops. Yeah, I don't care one way or another. Like, Trump can do whatever he wants, but I just think it's strange what they're doing right now and amping up for, and who they're surrounding themselves with. So I'm like, what's up, Grim?
Shout out to Grim washing an RV while listen. That's awesome. Hopefully going somewhere cool.
Right. That sounds fun to me. But yeah, it's weird. I mean, Hitler was on this trail. There's all kinds of these DNA trails too with all this stuff and what they were looking for and supposedly special DNA. I don't know. I do stories on
Were
it.
there any Nazi Mormons?
Oh, you don't know? Oh, we have to do a show on so Mormonism definitely supported the Nazi regime. In fact, they were one of the few people that showed up in Germany after the war was over to support them. They are heavily involved in Project Paperclip, and they are heavily involved in the support of the Nazi
Really?
regime
This
at
is
that
all new to
time.
me.
Yes, there's books written about this. They actually basically turned over a kid that was trying to fight against Hitler because he was trying to put it out in the little memos. He was in the church. Thomas S. Monson's involved in this. This is a whole thing. There are
Okay, well,
multiple
this is
books.
probably where the Mormons and the Vatican were like, hey, we share so many common
What's
interests.
up?
You helped
Well,
the Nazis after World War II. We helped the Nazis after World War II. Let's go
and
get lunch.
you do know that where they don't see eye to eye in some things and in some clubs, they do see eye to eye in one club, and that is the Rotary Club. There's high connections in the Rotary Club with the Mormons and the Catholics. They're friends. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, the Rotary Club is popular with Catholics because it's Masonry minus all of the papal decrees that say you're not allowed to do that.
Exactly. And so I'll tell you what, yeah, there's like probably no less than 10 books written on Nazis and Mormons. So it's a thing. Yeah. And they definitely use it more.
That'll be a spicy episode.
Nazi Mo's. Yeah. We
Oh, look, we got
definitely.
Andreas in the comments. He heard we were talking about.
Andreas.
Why does
That's
Andreas come up when we talk Nazis and not the
come on,
transhumanist
Andreas.
stuff?
Yeah. What about all your vitamins? We want to
do
know.
a part two. We'll do a part two.
Inquiring minds want to know what you're doing. You're gonna stay young forever.
What he has to do, he has to figure out what kind of information we're dispelling, and then he passes it up the chain, and then they give him the talking points to come back and refute it all for us.
Oh, he's there. Add him. He's here. I see him.
Oh, he is. Oh my God, he is.
Well,
Hi, Andrea.
Only a little bit. I'm sorry. I can get more ready. I was running back and forth, and I saw that you guys were talking about Germany, rather, and I'm in Germany. So,
Oh,
how are you?
good. How you doing? Are you living
Oh.
forever?
Yeah. No, I mean maybe I'll stay, and maybe I'll come back. If if things continue, like the morale continues to improve, and you guys keep talking about making your McDonald's great again, but we already have that here. Like it's already green McDonald's in Europe. So if you guys catch up, I feel like. But today I just got to see the Dresden Codex. So I learned a lot about the Mayan scrolls, which were, I thought, completely destroyed, but apparently they're only half destroyed and they were stuck behind glass and someone saved it. But it's crazy because like August wanted to make Dresden cooler by having the history of the lost civilization of the Mayans. And then Dresden gets bombed, So in a weird way, it's like he tied the destinies of the Mayan civilizational collapse to the collapse of Germany in a lot of ways. Yeah. But yeah, you guys are talking about the Third Reich, and I think it's interesting because there is definitely this idea of like a breakaway civilization attached to transhumanism and attached to the Mormons too. Like I was saying recently, Zion Point, like the Zion Point, which is really similar to Horizon Point, like Horizon Point. I think we're very close to whatever that is either way. But yeah, does it have to be so bashy in like a negative way? Because you look at like Germany today, you got like Turks, wild inclusion, which really fits with like at the time. Originally, Hitler was against Mussolini, right? And like they worked against each other, and Hitler supplied weapons to Africans and to Turks. So I don't know, just that was my thought about that. And also, you guys want to see my pills? Give me a second.
Yes. and then he was gone.
Well, there he goes. Yeah, I definitely think
It's like a
that
Mormon laughing.
Oh, there he is. Oh, there's your vitamins. Oh my gosh, Andreas.
Now, how do you get those through like Homeland Security?
That's what I want to understand, because they did not give me any
Holy.
trouble at all. And then they tested my mushroom tea mix, because I had that mud water in a can, and they gave
Oh,
me trouble for that. They're like, "Oh, we better test this in case." Like, what are you kidding me? Like, I look like I'm going to a rave in the
You're like,
Czech Republic.
don't let the red ones touch the blue ones, or we're all dead.
oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
like if I were me, like, I mean, that looks
Right.
like that looked like a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh.
Now you know, if you ever go fishing for an Andreas, you can just get a little tackle box of pills and just cast the line, and eventually you'll catch one.
It helps. It helps.
Oh.
I would recommend to anybody Bio NAD Plus. Obviously, like everyone should be taking NAD Plus. And what else? I mean, start with that.
What's the most experimental and controversial of all of those things in your little gift bag?
I can't even tell you that.
Okay, it's
Yeah, but you can know.
Are you
it's made from
cremated?
baby angel wings.
Are you drinking cremated prophets?
I mean, I'm in Dresden. I just saw the Mayan scroll.
Yeah.
Right.
Now I'm wondering
Andreas,
too.
we've missed you.
You were about the Mayan scroll. Is there a theory, like a Tartarian aspect or like an old world aspect, where they ship all of the things to places where a war is about to erupt? So now, like, oh, the war took it all out. Our history's
Of
gone.
course. Yeah, that's like the biggest one. Although I think it's even weirder than that now. Like the more I get into this whole like the crazier I'm getting, like the more like insane I get, the more it's about like time travel, you know, and so tying moments to other moments and like the nuclear aspect of causality that ties destruction of one place to a destruction of another place. I think it's, you know, it's almost like voodoo. Like it's really dangerous to mess with on that level. But also there's just like, what is the scroll about? So the scroll is about the good lot things, but it's about the conjunction of Venus, because Venus is the thing that the Mayans studied a lot. And wouldn't you know it, Mormons love Venus too.
They do.
The Egyptians love Venus. Who doesn't love it? But Venus could be Lucifer, right? Or, you know, this is the thing. The Greeks were very confused about Venus. They thought it was two stars. They thought it was Phosphore and Euphore, right? Which is basically just good version of evil. So they thought that they were seeing two stars when the Mayans knew very clearly it was just one star. And so you have to imagine how that would that would change your ideology, because you're thinking, wow, like there's a star that looks like the other star, but it's not. And the one that we like is good. So if the one that looks like it's not that, it should be evil, right? And it started. You have this conjecture about Lucifer that happens of Satan. Lucifer then Satan, right? And then you've got the bright morning star and Mercury to justify that later. Well, the Mayans know better, so they're just saying, actually, buddy, it's the same thing. Lucifer and Jesus Christ for you in this celestial astronomical thing is the same thing. And I can totally see why the Jesuits would want you dead for saying that. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot.
Well, my understanding is that the Jesuits explained that, and that Satan showed up and gave them all that false information. So then by the time the missionaries came, they were like, oh, you guys have been fooled for this whole entire time. Jesus is not Satan.
The Jesuits seem to get it, and then they send the information back, and there's people in Europe that freak out about it. That's basically how it always goes. So the Europeans are freaking out because they have less context, and they're stuck in their little world, you know, and they're like, oh my God, like, clearly these other people are ignorant. But the Mayan civilization, the other thing is like, this scroll is the oldest scroll that we have, which isn't saying much. There's only 4 in the world, but it's the only one you can actually see that's like on it that can be, you know, accessed. I can't touch it, but no one could. Like I can touch the glass, but no one can get beyond that because the war effort, like the war destroyed everything. Luckily, this was in August Castle, so it didn't quite get bombed. But it was wet, so they put it behind glass in 1945, and it got stuck because of it being wet. You know what I mean? So they can't ever take it out of the glass again. But you can, you know, it was amazing the amount of like they let me like beyond that I could like check it out in every respect. It's incredible. They have a special room that keeps the perfect dark lighting all the time, so it's like perfectly taken care of. Oh, I loved it. It was pretty great. But yeah, so like the scroll, I think that most of the time Europeans were afraid of, you know, what this kind of idea would do to the European, to say, hey, like Lucifer and Jesus are, you know, this is on the Trinitarian level, like you're saying, like Lucifer and Jesus are part of the Godhead, that they're the seraph, right? And then like you're removing a major aspect of the control mechanism of the church. And that's, I mean, it's interesting though, because then what you're saying is, I find interesting the Mayan thing. I don't really connect Mormonism as directly to the Mayan things as some Mormons do. A lot of BYU professors are like, oh, it was the Machu Picchu. Like, I'm not, I would almost go with the Heartland model, like more often than not. But just looking at this, I can totally see why Mormonism is in more parity to what the Mayans were talking about, right?
With Quetzalcoatl, right? With Quetzalcoatl, right?
Yeah. 1 second. I got to answer that phone. But yeah, I'm supposed to leave now. So I love you both. Particularly Abby, because she's great. But Thomas, you're a beautiful man. So we should definitely talk soon.
I like the cut of your jib, sir.
Much love, much love.
Oh, I
He
wanted
had
to tell him
go.
to get me a
Aw.
little chunk of the freaking scroll while he was there, because it sounds like he's got free access. He can do whatever the hell he wants. He stopped himself short of letting us know that he can do whatever he wants with these scrolls. He's got some kind of special access.
Of course he does. Of course he does. Right?
You
That's all
can
right.
probably take a little chunk.
We love Andreas. Andreas is also always full of information.
I had no idea that the Mormons were connecting themselves to the Mayans. That's fairly new to me too.
There's a prophet that actually specifically talked about Quetzalcoatl being Jesus Christ.
What?
We can do a episode on that.
That sounds awesome.
I told you when we started that Mormonism was the gift that keeps on giving, and it literally, we're talking about Nazis today. We're talking
You're
about
crazy for leaving it. You're honestly crazy. You put in all that work. You got like the gold card that let you into the library and everything, and you gave it all up for what?
For Jesus.
Eternal salvation? Come on.
Yeah, for Jesus. Yeah. The real one, not Quetzalcoatl one. Not that
the
one.
Quetzalcoatl Jesus.
Not Quetzalcoatl Jesus or Lucifer Jesus either.
Did Andreas get to vote? Yeah, Andreas gets to vote. I'm pretty sure that he is in the Electoral College.
He has like 10 votes.
He's got like all of the votes of California, I think, or at least like an entire county's worth.
Exactly. He's probably a representative for sure.
We got to know the first Mormons were minors. No, those were just the first Mormon wives.
Oh, no, that was just Joseph digging for the plates. With his bare hands.
I kid. I still want an open door. So any jokes I make about Brigham Young and all that, like I say, I'm kidding. I don't close me completely out of the temple. I haven't made my mind up yet.
There you go. You got to get married, So you're a menace. You're a menace to society.
Well, you have to get married in order to get your second name, right? Or can you get your second name without getting married?
You can't be living in sin and go to the temple, sir.
When do you get your second name?
When you go to the temple.
Well, I mean, don't you go to the temple all the time?
No, it's you can't go. So church is different than temple. Temple is like exclusive. You have to pass all the questions. So they loosened it up. You would have been excluded years ago because you're in a secret society, but they stopped that because now everybody's in a secret society. So you're good now on that. You just got to you can't drink alcohol. You can't masturbate. You have to be married if you're living with someone, or she's got to move out. You can't have premarital sex, and you can't smoke and drink coffee. But I think they've loosened up coffee. There's lots of changes since I'm out. So no alcohol, all the things.
I'm doing multiple of those things at this exact moment. So
no drugs. Let's see. What else? I don't know.
See, I don't believe that. I think Joseph Smith would have been okay with people smoking.
But Joseph was different. And he was, remember, we talked about this between Brigham Young and Joseph Smith. And I think Brigham was the one that really tightened up the reins, because he was like, listen, you drunk idiots. Because Joseph Smith owned a bar. Did you know that?
I didn't know that he owned it. I'm sure you mentioned it before, but I forgot.
No, I don't know that I have, but his rule was you can't drink that of other people. So I think his was trying to be brand name. Like, I am making the alcohol, so buy my beer,
Oh,
right?
that would
Like
be so smart.
that was what he did. And so he also
Moroni
said you could
Malt.
make it yourself. Yeah, there, there's some really funny bears here in Utah, and one of them is there's like a polygamy one. Oh my gosh, Casey, if you're listening to me, put it in the notes. The funny bears. He knows because I don't drink beer. So um go for something harder.
I don't even
Porter,
know what this means. He
something
drank beer at
polygamy porter
Moosers for his
per
journal.
his journals.
Is this a
Yeah,
joke or is this a real? Is this like a
no,
tidbit?
no, his journals. Yeah, no, his journals. He talks about drinking, and he
What's
just doesn't.
Moosers? Is that the name of a bar? Is
Polygamy
it a city?
porter. Yes, polygamy porter. Like Porter, Rockwell. It's there's a bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of funny plays on it. So yeah. But yes, in his journals, he talks about all kinds of things and making your own malt and making your own. He wanted them to be more self-sufficient and not be, just going to anyone for that stuff. I mean, he wanted it to be a Mormon thing. So yeah. So I don't think he was necessary. I don't think he liked hard liquor because his dad was an alcoholic and it was an issue. So yeah.
And he
Anyway,
drank wine in prison. Not nice prison.
I mean, they gave
We
him a
should,
gun. They
should
gave
make
him a gun.
prison's great again. So they're
Yeah, they
giving out
made it.
wine.
They gave him a gun too. They gave him guns and wine and beer and whatever. But as far as Joseph goes, if he would have continued to lead the church, I don't think that it would have been as staunch, and I don't think that the magical practices would have gone away. He was very into them, and that's the whole thing. Is everything changed when Brigham Young came in, and he made actually LDS Abuse does a great thing on the Rotary Club. If we can, I did a show with him. You guys can check that out. He's great, but he goes clear into the Rotary Club and how, the government was like working directly with Brigham Young after Joseph Smith's death. And like I said, they helped build the railroads. They helped build one of the first sugar companies for beet sugar, not regular sugar. And it's like the more caustic sugar, obviously. But yeah, so interesting. Yeah. It's a very interesting.
There's a good question here. Did the Rotary Club invent rotary phones? I don't think
I
so.
don't
I'm
know
pretty
about
sure they
that.
didn't.
But I mean, there were lots of things to do with the Rotary International. So
Well,
it
we've
doesn't
got a nice
surprise me.
agenda for future episodes
We have a
now.
lot. Yes, we
So
we
it's
gotta.
a
Okay, I'm
gift
gonna
that
write them
keeps on
down. We're gonna
giving.
talk about Quetzalcoatl, and we're gonna talk about the Rotary and money. And then what else was on the agenda? Because we've talked about a lot of things today.
We could do a little bit more Twilight because I didn't even really get into any of the
I think
Twilight stuff.
honestly, the Twilight stuff, I think was pretty much everything I said, other than I had one more conjecture on it, and we should do an episode on this as well, is I wonder if she made the Native Americans have the curse of the werewolf because of Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch is a whole really big rabbit hole. And if you guys go to Skinwalker Ranch, because I live kind of nearish to there, they will try and shoot you, just so you know. Like, they don't play. So yeah, it's kind of scary. But and
Property
then
rights.
what was the other thing?
Third Reich was another big one.
Oh, the Nazi Mormons. Oh, that's a huge one. That'll be a two-parter. That's a big one. Nazi Mormons are really big. The Nazi Mormons are huge. So yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole, and it's only going to get deeper because Joseph Smith kept digging. No, just kidding.
I see what you did.
Yeah,
You got any shows that are coming up you want to promote? Any interviews? Anything big?
Sure. Yeah. I always have my Patreon that does 2 extra shows a month, all about murders, Mormons, and mayhem. I am looking into doing an episode on Israel Keys. He is fascinating. He's way more scary than most mass murderers and calculating. And they don't talk about him a lot, but he was a Mormon. And also Jodi Arias, she was one. But I just did do an interview with Ed Mabry on the Mother in Heaven, because Mormons do believe in a mother in heaven, and we did a great show on that. I also wonder if that goes into goddess worship and Asherah, so we go into all of that. And the new one coming out with Joseph, with Warren Jeff's ex-wife, and she was his 65th wife, Brielle Decker. So,
And we're gonna
Never.
rebaptize you on the next show, even if you don't want to. We're just gonna.
I
do
got
it.
baptized to God only in a reservoir, and that's all. Yes, I did get rebaptized, but not Mormon baptized. So. Yes, me and Thomas have fun. I actually love all the questions you bring because it's things that I don't think of. Like a lot of times you'll say things that I'm like, what?
They're all questions that I know would get me kicked out because my parents were asked to not bring me back to Sunday school because of the questions that I was because I'm always thinking of the loopholes just for, I don't know, because that's where my mind usually goes. And that was the question that got me kicked out of Sunday school was,
Oh my gosh, that's
it
hysterical.
wasn't even bad. It wasn't offensive or anything, but it was like, if you burn forever, wouldn't you get used to it after like a week? Like, wouldn't you just be like, okay, I guess this is like a constant level of pain, and you would just adapt to it?
You're
And
minimizing the punishment, so they're like,
right, yeah, I was kind of undermining, like rationalizing, like, it'd be bad for a month or two, but I mean, if we're talking eternity, you acclimate to anything.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. You boys getting
I
kicked
probably
out.
had worse questions than that, but that was the one that was like, because and it wasn't just me, but it was disruptive because I remember asking that. I was probably like 7 or something.
Oh,
I remember
wow.
asking that, and there was a group of kids that were just whatever doing macaroni art, making little macaroni crosses or something, and I remember seeing them all like sit up and like, wait, that makes sense. And then the teacher's like, we gotta squash this right now.
My husband got kicked out of high school for asking the teacher if she went fishing in the dark because they were asking about favorite songs. And that kind of reminds me, like the innocence of
Is
it.
that a euphemism for something that I don't know?
It's just a song, but actually it is a naughty. Actually, he didn't know anything about what it really means because it's just a country song. But it actually means some things. You guys can go look up "Fishing in the Dark" on Google because it's inappropriate.
Well, thank you. Now we've got like a dirty joke that we're gonna end.
Dirty joke.
The stream on, and I'll end it too on me and Donut have been working on this Illuminati comic book. We launched it 1 week ago. Within 3 minutes, it got fully funded, and as of right now, we passed just over 25 grand. There's 382 people that have backed it. This is the biggest and I guess most highly anticipated Paranoid American comic release in history. And it's got some of the coolest sort of little exclusive packs in it. It's full color. It's got 50 pages, over 100 color panels that break down the history of the Bavarian Illuminati. It's shaped like a little Jack Chick track, which were like some of the OG like religious paraphernalia propaganda, but we're using that same format to teach people about the Bavarian Illuminati. And I guess the highlight is there's this VHS box and there's also a VIP VHS box. And if you get either one of these, every time we hit one of these big stretch goals, we're stuffing these things with more and more things. So like, for example, this VIP VHS box, we just passed 25 grand. So now anyone that gets any of the printed comics is going to get a sticker, a trading card, an art print, a second sticker, a second trading card. But if you got the VIP one, you're getting 3 stickers, 2 cards, a sticker sheet, and an embroidered patch. And this is going to be like an Illuminati, maybe Illuminati Yacht Club embroidered patch, something. So anyways,
you should have made your top tier. You should have made your top tier a Mason hat, a similar one.
We were actually looking into not Mason hat, but a captain's hat, which would have been kind of cool. But after like me and Donut spent like a month figuring out the perfect little like rewards and stuff for this, we actually settled instead of the captain's hat, which would have had limited use. We're gonna do a big ass 30 by 60 inch beach towel. That's got a huge Illuminati Where's Waldo. This isn't the final design. It's a huge Illuminati Yacht Club Where's Waldo scene with like hundreds of different little characters that you can point out and find and stuff. So that ended up taking the place of a captain's hat. We got like a little tumbler. We got a little challenge coins. It's cool. This is honestly the coolest most ambitious, but also thankfully I'm doing this after I've been around the block a few times on releasing these, so I kind of know what's unreasonable and what's reasonable. This is totally
Right.
unreasonable, like the amount of stuff we're going to be packing in these, but I'm super excited about it. So yeah, if
That's
anyone
awesome.
wants
I'm
to
glad
back
it got funded.
go
Awesome.
to illuminaticomic.com and you can get a copy.
That's great. That's cool.
All right, are we out of here? Are we gonna?
Yeah, I think
right,
so. I
well-
think we covered it.
Well, we'll meet everyone here back in 2 weeks. We're gonna try and do this bi-weekly, I guess. We'll see how we can do it.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.
See you guys.
Bye.
Illuminati comic. Yeah, Illuminati comic. You know you want it. This Illuminati comic.
Learn about the full history of the Bavarian Illuminati. Adam Weishaupt, Alumbrados, Jesuits, Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and more. From the 18th century to modern day, we expose it all.
Yeah, Illuminati comic. You know you want it. This Illuminati comic.
That's right, it's the Illuminati comic from Donut and Paranoid American. Get yours now at IlluminatiComic.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlight your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blood smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.